The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Saturdays or Sundays, SOR Media, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Any rebroadcast, reproduction, or other use of this broadcast or podcast without the express written consent of SOR Media is strictly prohibited. Listener discretion is advised. Are you experienced? Then come own the night with us.
Little brother has taken control, shoveling dirt in every hole. Predators to condemn your soul, watching you and watching me. We're all
Station atop the mountains of British Columbia, live from SOR headquarters. This is Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
We live behind glass curtains and act like nothing's wrong. Soon you will belong.
You can follow us on our website, spacedoutradio.com, and on Spaced Out Radio on iTunes. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR, on Facebook at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio.
Brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized. Everyone's got an electric eye with the digital spies. They've watched you for so long. I know you're out there somewhere watching me.
Buckle up, space travelers. It's time to go for a ride on Spaced Out Radio with host Dave Scott.
I know you're out there somewhere. We've watched you for so long. We wait for you to fall. We will expose you all. I know you're out there somewhere watching me. Little brother wants to make headlines, be immortalized.
It's Wednesday, January 15th, Thursday, January 18th, if you're on the East Coast or across the pond, and this is Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott. Hope you had a great day and night. We are live right in the Great White North in the Caribou region of British Columbia, where the snow keeps on piling up at SOR headquarters. We are 150,000 strong. Nightly on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia. On the United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM in New Orleans. And over 160 countries around the world. We're also live on spacedoutradio.com, Spreaker, The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio to Las Vegas, the High Plains Talk Radio Network, and if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to revolution.radio, and donate today. Now, you can check us out on Periscope. Of course, we are right there. We are live with you right now. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing it out on your Twitter feed and on Facebook. It is absolutely great that you're doing that. We're on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, Dave Scott SOR. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio for our archives. We're on iHeartRadio in the United States. Tune in, download and subscribe to our shows on iTunes, and of course our website is spacedoutradio.com. Now, we do have a GoFundMe account going on right now. GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. That's GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. We got to build a new studio. We got radio stations lining up to pick us up. Yeah, little old us right here in Canada. They want us. So we got to build a new studio. You guys can help out. Once again, GoFundMe.com/We Own the Night. If you head to our website, of course, you can read up on the encounter online, dealing with everything paranormal, strange, and odd. Shop at our Spaced Out Radio store. Watch great videos from Tim Doyle from UFO Seekers and Leslie Mitchell Clark's Contact TV. You can even rock out to some Bumblefoot. Yes, Mr. THAL rocking Spaced Out Radio in and out of every show. Jenniffer Weigel is back on the show tonight for her first appearance of 2018, second time overall. I tell you, there is a reason why I am a giant fan of hers. It's because with a lifetime of journalism in her life, she's always out for the heart of the story, whether it's about near-death experience, publicly explaining her own intuition, or maybe it's a hardcore news story. That's just the way she was brought up. Now, the last time we had Jenniffer on, we talked about her latest book, I'm Spiritual, Damn It. Now, Jenniffer is one of those spot-on people who has used her media influence along with her extreme talent to shed light on spirituality and the idea that there is something more out there that we need to figure out. So tonight we're going to delve into a little bit of everything with Jenniffer. Jen will be with us the first 2 hours of tonight's show. Hour number 3, Joe Roop from the Lighting the Void and the Fringe FM is going to join us. We're going to open up the lines to you as well in hour number 3. So, Jenniffer Weigel, thank you so much for being back on Spaced Out Radio tonight. How are you?
I am very well. How about you?
I'm doing pretty good. You know, I'm having a good hair day. I'm having a great hair day, actually. I'm not going to lie. You know, and
you're bragging.
No, serious. It's very rare. It's rare. And you know what? I can honestly say, you know, I've never grown my hair before. So at 44 years old, for the first time in my life, I decided last September I'm done with haircuts for a while. So that's what I'm doing.
Well, good for you. You've made a decision. You're sticking with it.
But before we get started, Jen, I do want to publicly say that today I put a great post on my Facebook about my beautiful daughter who turned 19 years old today. And up here in Canada, it's the legal drinking age. So I called her up, I messaged her, and I said, can Dad call you while I'm on the air to get things started? I want to wish you a happy birthday to my beautiful girl who is the light of my life. And she's like, Dad, I'm at the bar right now. Well, of course you are. You're 19. You're 19. So dear old Dad got stiffed on an interview from his own daughter, but that's okay. My daughter, beautiful daughter Peyton, turning 19 today. I had 115 people on my Facebook like it, comment on it, put a little heart sign. So I'm feeling all gushy right now because my baby girl is such a beautiful, smart, intelligent woman, and I'm so proud of her. And I you know, Jen, being the Canadian in me, I got to apologize for eating up some time with you to gush about my daughter, but that's what I'm doing.
That's what people do when they have kids, at least the people that I know who really like their kids. So I'm glad to know you like yours, because I do the same. My son's only 11, but, you know, the minute he's able to text me that he's in a bar, I mean, look out.
Well, the big one for me will be when she's 21, because I'm going to be flying her down to Las Vegas, and, you know, Daddy's going to have to show his daughter how to party and how to stay up all night. I still got that game in me. She can't win that one. She can't win that one.
No, she cannot. She will never take your crown.
No, not at all. Not at all. So we want to welcome everyone into the show. Jen, one of the first things that I want to talk about tonight is you have this amazing ability to have not only a lifetime of media experience, but you also have a lifetime of intuitive experience as well that you have written exclusively about in your novels. But I wanted, and maybe I'm hitting you off guard here, but I wanted to get your take on the media as someone who has been around it literally a lifetime. Last month, the New York Times... Last month, the New York Times brought out an article about UFOs and disclosure. And since then, the mainstream media has been taking this story very seriously, which in reality is about time. It really is. However, there's a lot of complaints going on, especially, and I've brought this up and others have brought this up, about the complaints about the way the mainstream media has actually, what's the word I'm looking for, handled this story. How do you think the media dealt with it for trying to take this story seriously?
Well, I think we talked about this last time. I think the reason that this hasn't become mainstream is because it just couldn't be handled. I mean, it would cause mass chaos when people have a belief system of what they think is real. And then, look at how our country handled, the election of a person who had never had any government experience before as our president. I mean, it's just so hard to wrap our head around, right? So if something like that comes out, even with a reputable, and I say reputable loosely in quotes because I really have a hard time with any news organization nowadays, having worked at so many of them, and I say this quite often, there is no story that's out there that is not some sort of bias. I mean, unless it's just a conversation like this that's unedited, which is why I love radio and podcasting, because you are having genuine conversations that are not chopped to bits and made into tweets. And, I'm not knocking Twitter and I'm not knocking social media, but everything is edited now. And it's really hard to get something. And so that story in the New York Times, whoever, presented that to the editor then took it and chopped it up to make it fit the word count that they had space for. So it's impossible to get anything that's truly unedited anymore. And so I have a real hard time with media in general all around, because everything you're watching, from something on television to something that you're reading in print or online, is edited down based on the opinion of that editor who does the editing.
And I fully agree with you on that, because in the end, somebody has to read it over. Somebody has to take the control of the story and, either grow it or condense it to make it work. But do you think, though, that this was a good thing that the media actually reacted the way many experiencers, whether they're abductees, contactees, or just have seen weird lights in the sky, are finally getting a little bit of vindication, saying to all those people who, slagged them, put them down, bullied them a little bit, to say, hey, told you so? Do you think that was good, at least?
Well, you're going to have to tell me what the story was, because, to be honest, I've taken all of the alerts of mainstream media off of my phone because I don't buy it anymore. So tell me what the story was, because I didn't even fully dig into it.
The New York Times basically came out with a story in mid-December, early to mid-December, saying that the Pentagon had started or had funded a UFO research project led by Senator Harry Reid, including billionaire Black Project private contractor Robert Bigelow. And, this all tied into the To the Stars campaign. They came out with a grainy video, supposedly from an FA-18 Hornet in 2004 that was chasing a UFO, and that got released. So there's a lot that kind of went on, and that the media really finally jumped on this topic. And there wasn't many of them playing the X-Files theme song or Star Trek. They were actually taking a hold of this position and a hold of this topic and treating it like a real news story for the first time in a long time.
Well, I think that's great. I think it's excellent if they actually were giving it, some airplay and some legitimacy, because that's what's going on now. I mean, unfortunately, now everybody thinks that they are a journalist, put very loosely in quotes, because they could have an outlet now, right? We can take our phone and periscope anything, right? But that's life. We're literally witnessing life, moment to moment. So everybody kind of is a reporter. And so imagine if we had smartphones back when, all of the sightings started happening in mass, fast amounts, right? I mean, I joke all the time that there are people globally who believe, millions of people believe, I mean, I think it's 250 plus believe in Christianity, that Jesus, came back and talked to Mary from the dead, but yet we had no phone to periscope it at the time. We had no digital recording. This was all just passed on, word of mouth, from person to person. So now we have all this evidence. And I think what's happening is, and I say this a lot, we cannot put the toothpaste back in the tube anymore. There's too much evidence. They can't deny it anymore. And if they continue to deny this stuff, then they're going to be the ones that are made fun of.
Do you think, though, that it's about time? Do you think it's about time that the media started looking at this? And the criticism that I have in the media in regards to this, though, is the fact that they haven't really gone after a lot of the UFO researchers over the years, and dropping some names like Stanton Friedman, Grant Cameron, Richard Dolan, people like that. They've only gone after this one government official named Luis Elizondo, who apparently ran this program. And the way I look at it, and I want to get this more on your angle, and this is what I've been trying to tell my audience, and I'm curious your opinion on this, is when the media is caught off guard with a topic like they were with this one, because for so many years they've made fun of people who have had experiences. They've made fun of shows like this one. And now, all of a sudden, they're having to deal with this front-page news story about UFOs in the New York Times, and they're reacting. So what do? The reporters go and throw a bunch of softball questions because they're unsure how to cover the story. Do you think that maybe that could be a plan of the government as a setup, because the media was caught off guard by not doing their research and not taking this subject seriously?
I think anything's possible, right, with the government. I have no idea. I'm not one of those people that's very versed on the conspiracies, but I believe that anything's possible. I also think that the government tries to, like I said, curtail panic, because mass panic causes, looting and all sorts of problems, right? When people lose faith that they don't have any control and they're worried that they're going to be taken over, or that, aliens are invading, then they're going to lose it and go do things irrationally, right? So there is still that going on, I think, in mass numbers. But, you guys were speaking out openly about intergalactic things, I mean, from a government standpoint before we were, and I think it's like a matter of time before we were going to finally catch up. Truly.
Well, it's about time that it happened, and I just wanted to, I know you weren't really prepared for that, but I really wanted to get your opinion on that, because your opinion with your experience in the media really means a lot to our listeners and to myself as well, so I do appreciate that. So, you just need more aliens and UFOs in your life, or do you have enough going on with the ghosts and spirituality?
Well, it's all part of the world that people want to poo-poo and say it's weird, so it's different, so let's just put it in this container, right? And so for me, having been in the mainstream media and seeing, like, we used to sit in, they call it the page one meeting, right, where they would decide what's going to be on page one of where I worked at the Chicago Tribune. And it would be this huge debate on, what gets the front page, because back before we had online, and I'm not saying, I worked at the newspaper when there was online presence, but still the front page of what is printed and winds up, out and about, or even the front page of what happens on digitally, will have an impact. And imagine how many stories are trying to get front page coverage, right? There are so many sections fighting to get that front page coverage. And so it literally is this crapshoot of, well, is it going to be this story about the mayor, or is it going to be this story about, pets being, put in overnight luggage and unfortunately passing away on United Airlines? I mean, you name it, it was all over the map, right? And those stories that were put in the front page would get the traction that would be talked about on the morning news shows, on the radio shows, and then they would become viral, right? They would go viral depending on if it was one of those stories that had a good hook. And I thought about the power of that just by deciding what you're going to put on right by the name of the paper. The first few paragraphs that people lay their eyes on will have a huge impact. And that's all just decided by basically 3 to 4 people's opinions. And so everything that we see and everything that we soak up, somebody decided it was important. And it's really wild when you think about how many things are generated, how many things are reported on, and how many things are focused on based on somebody's opinion. And we have to remember that with everything that's happening, unless you're an eyewitness to it, it is being talked about because somebody else decided it was important enough to talk about it. And that's the way it's been going for a very, very long time, and that's the way it's going to continue to go for a very long time. And it's just up to us to be responsible to not necessarily believe everything we read, but to try to find the truth between each space, right? Between the lines, reading between the lines, which people who've been listening to your show, Dave, have been doing for a very long time because they know there's more going on than what we can see or touch or what we're being exposed to. There has to be.
Well, I know even in the mainstream, even with mainstream stories, the way media outlets right now are jumping on everything without doing research anymore, it kind of makes you crave for the days back when, and it wasn't that long ago, when we actually had reporters doing reporter work. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know up here in Canada right now, there is a huge mess in the media because in Toronto, you know, and I'm not trying to get into a racist talk here or anything like that, but in Toronto, they trotted out an 11-year-old Muslim girl who went public in front of television cameras stating that a white man had come up to her and cut her hijab with scissors. And now the Toronto police were out searching for this man, saying he's probably going to attack again. The Prime Minister goes on Twitter saying Canadians don't stand for this. Canadians are better than this. This person needs to be caught and put in jail to protect this young little lady. Well, we find out today the entire story is fake.
Of course.
She made it up and her family made it up.
And so another thing that I just recently fell victim to was something that was on social media. It was this story about some famous actor being from, you know, a town near Chicago, and all these people took a hold of it and virally shared it as if it were truth, just because they read it. It seemed like it was written well. It seemed like a possibly credible source, but it was some made-up name, made-up story, and the whole thing was made up. And so that is where, you know, we're really in a dangerous time, Dave, where you don't have to have an outlet to produce a story and create a story. And if something gets traction, then who knows what will happen, and that's what's happening. And so for the New York Times to do something like you were talking about earlier, to be able to talk about the possibility of aliens and even put that on the front page or even give it a few paragraphs is so major. I can't even imagine the meetings that had to take place to get that to be talked about. That to me means there must have been so much compelling evidence that they all had to sit around and go, yeah, if we don't do this, somebody else is going to beat us to it. And that is usually the case when a big, big story like that breaks and somebody takes the risk to go ahead and report on it when nobody else has before. Like I'm thinking back to like the Crown era, right? With like Queen Elizabeth, nobody ever used to write in journalism about the royal family. It was like taboo. You would never write a story that was, you know, disrespectful to the crown. But then suddenly someone decided to do it. It was about Princess Margaret actually dating, you know, a captain who was divorced. This was this huge scandal. You know, this was a long time ago, obviously. We were talking like the early 50s, I believe. But basically what happened is they finally decided to do the story only because somebody else was going to break it if they did it, right? And it was that fear. And so that's the problem, is that there's so much fear based in all the decisions that are made. It's the fear that someone else will break the news story first, instead of that it's actually a story that could help consciousness. No. It's the fear that somebody else might get to it first.
And the way the 24-hour wheel now works on the news cycle, it's almost like the days of confirmation are now over, and it's who gets it on Twitter or Facebook or any type of social media first.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. I mean, if we have in our country a president who's using Twitter as his main news source and reporting source, now all bets are off. I mean, I remember that's one of the things that gave Twitter so much credibility years ago when actors started using it to break their news, because it was literally like, oh, and then all of a sudden the government decided, wait, we better take this seriously. This isn't just a fad for teenagers. There are real people using this as a means for breaking their own news. And so we took away the news outlet as an important factor to get the news and information. It was a huge, groundbreaking shift, and which is why, when I look on Twitter, if I do, I mean, I'll follow certain threads of certain people and artists, and there's so many writers and authors that I like to follow and see what they're up to. And if they're not Instagramming or Facebooking or tweeting about something, I'm probably not going to know about it, because I don't pay attention to the headlines like I used to. I used to have 16 alerts go off on my phone every day from, BBC, ABC, CBS, you name it, New York Post, Washington Post, New York Daily News, all of it, and Chicago Tribune, of course. And when I decided to turn all of that off, and this goes into like my spiritual work too, and a lot of people think this is weird and woo-woo, but I'm telling you, the cortisol levels, the stress levels that I would be experiencing diminished incredibly, because I was no longer worrying about the state of our globe. I just, I'm an empath, and I literally feel other people's worry and angst, and I think a lot of your listeners probably had the same problem. Or I don't want to call it a problem, because it's really a wonderful tool when it comes to being a parent. You can kind of have a spidey sense about your child that other people don't have. And it does come in handy. It was great when I was a reporter, because I would follow my gut. I would literally use my intuition as a reporter, and it helped me gather information, and it helped me with hunches. All those things were really good when I was working in the business. But now that I'm out of that world, per se, in the day-to-day, I don't have the alerts on, and it's a lot better way to live.
I don't know what that's like, even though I don't have cable anymore. My internet site, well, because of the show I do, I kind of have to stay involved, even though I try and, wade through the day-to-day operations of a newsroom. It is something that I do try and stay on top of, because every now and again you get some weird and strange news. I recently wrote a story for our news section on our website that the Las Vegas Janet Airlines that flies into Area 51 is looking for a new stewardess. I think that's a great story for what we do. And so you have to write on things like that. But, I mean, I wish I could just walk away scot-free like yourself and just turn it all off. I mean, how long did that take to finally get used to?
About a week. And then I never looked back, I'm telling you. But, the thing is like my family is still, my brother is still a news anchor, and so I'll turn on when he tells me that he's working a certain shift that I might actually want to turn on and see. I'll turn it on just to watch him, sometimes to be a good family member. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, I have missed so much. It's so funny, because I literally feel like I have been hibernating in the woods, and then I get plugged back into it, and then I find myself getting stressed out about it. I find myself getting worried about it, and it's just not worth it. I just have to remember that, just because I don't follow the headlines doesn't mean I'm going to crumble. Like, I'm still going to be fine. And I still listen on the radio. Like when I've got Sirius, I've got satellite radio. So I tune in. I love the BBC. So I think I kind of got hooked on the BBC as a news outlet during our election, because I couldn't stand the coverage, because everybody was so biased in that. When I turned on the BBC, I literally felt like they were watching us, kind of going, isn't this interesting? Can you believe that they've done this now? It was really kind of fun to watch watch Europe react to the United States and what the heck was going on. So that to me was enjoyable. So I did kind of shift gears from, the States to the BBC just so I could get more of a global perspective.
Do you find that when you take a look at other countries' newsrooms that the angles seem to be still about telling the story rather than telling a side of the story?
Do I think that most newsrooms just tell the story instead of a side of the story?
Yeah, because what we've seen in a lot of American main national newsrooms is we've seen them pick a side, whether it's Republican, whether it's Democratic. They seem to have an opinion, whereas with other countries like the BBC or maybe it's Canada, CBC, wherever you're looking, do you happen to notice a difference in the type of journalism?
No, I think that yes, I think globally and even Al Jazeera does a better job than we do here in the United States, and the BBC does a better job than we do here in the United States of covering all angles of the story. I'll give you another example. There was, was it CNN? A friend of mine was doing a documentary, and he was in Israel, and there was some tension going on. There had been some airstrikes, right? But for the most part, everything had calmed down, and the strikes were over, and people had gotten back to their regular routine. But the headline that CNN wanted was that terror was reigning supreme in Israel. And the reporter was basically arguing with the news director or whoever was in charge of her live shot. And she was like, look, I'm telling you, people are calm, it's okay. And they were basically saying, that's not what you can tell us. That's not what your headline's going to be. You're going to say terror in Israel or whatever. And they weren't there. They weren't even reporting on the story. And so the reporter was arguing, and my friend who is from Chicago, right, but he's in Israel for a documentary, is witnessing this and then sends me an email about it. And I don't know if it was CNN or if it was CNBC. It was one of our, national here in the United States, one of our national networks. And it was really embarrassing to hear this story from his firsthand account of being there, what was happening, and that happens a lot.
So, considering you're in Chicago, I'm just wondering, have you had any Mothman-type sightings around there that seem to be going around the alternative cryptid media? Are you following the Mothman?
Nope. Tell me about the Mothman, Dave. I'm telling you, I'm probably disappointing you in more ways than one, but you got to fill me in.
Oh, just there are some cryptid reporters saying that, and we've had them on this show, saying that they are researching sightings of the whole Mothman that seems to have moved to Chicago from West Virginia.
Oh, man. See the things I miss when I unplug? But is the Mothman going to hurt people, or are we going to be okay with this? Now, see, honestly, because I've fallen victim to, believing links that unfortunately are, go viral. Unless do we have photo evidence of this? Do we have somebody on the smartphone? What I want to know is where's the viral video that we know isn't doctored? Then I'll really, because that's truly what's happening now, and why UFOs even became so popular, right? Because people had these witness accounts. They had this footage. They had, and all these survivors of Roswell and, people who are in the administrative or people in government. That's to me so amazing that we actually used to fund programs that helped try to, here in the United States, that helped try to find the bad guys with remote viewing. This is documented by people who worked for the CIA. This is stuff that has been documented, and people try to go, oh, they're just talking nonsense. Oh, that's just silly business. But, people who had these reputable positions coming forward and saying, this is legit, this was my experience, I'm not making this up. And that's going to be happening more and more and more. Then you can really say, oh, maybe they aren't cuckoo. Maybe they are legit.
Well, let's move over on to the spiritual side, which is something you are talking a lot about in your last couple of years, and your writings about it have gone very, very well for you as a very successful author in regards to this. What made you decide, for our public who maybe didn't get to hear you last year, to start writing books and focusing all of your intentions on spirituality and learning more and teaching people about it?
Oh, I just, I was like everybody else. Like, I didn't know if I believed that any of this was true, but I always had a hunch that there was more going on than we could ever understand. And for us to think that we could have all the answers was pretty arrogant. So I'm a big believer that research is what helps create belief systems, right? And, the more we research and the more we do, the more evidence we can gather, and then we can form our opinions. And so, if we didn't do that, we would still think the world was flat. I mean, we had to keep compiling evidence, even though it looks pretty flat with the human eye. Science tells us, and everything else tells us, that's not the case. So my father passed away from a brain tumor, and I started noticing some really bizarre coincidences, I guess you would call them, to give them any other name, But now I know, because of all the research I've done, all the people I've interviewed, that there's actually all these other dimensions. I mean, this kind of opened my mind to everything that's like so many different layers going on, from being able to communicate with other dimensions, from people who have these sort of spidey senses, I would call it, right? These people who can talk to people who've died, or at least get messages from the other side. My own research has shown, like, even within my own family, that it goes back that there are people who have had this gift that we didn't know about until you start sniffing around. And I think that anyone who's listening, if you start digging under the hood, as we call it, and asking for more and more stories about, your ancestors, you're probably going to find that there is a healer or a psychic or a medium somewhere in your lineage, whether Grandma Mabel wants to admit it or not. There are people this has been going on in so many different cultures. There were medicine men that were revered in cultures going back thousands of years that you would go to for all your answers, the medicine man and the mystic and all of these kinds of things. And we have now completely just put things in compartments and made it seem so bizarre. So it can't possibly be true because we can't understand it, and that would be too scary. So I just started digging in and interviewing everybody who claimed they had any sort of gift, whether it was hands-on healing or predicting things that came true, or, talking to dead Uncle Stan. It was all of the above. And I just kept writing and interviewing. And, 4 books later, I'm still writing. And now I have, I think, 4 or 5 audiobooks, which are now the compilations of my interviews that I do for my podcast. So I just keep having the conversations. I just interviewed Dr. Jeffrey Long, who's the founder of the Near-Death Experience Research Foundation, so NDERF.org, where he's compiled thousands and thousands of cases where people have died and lived to talk about it. And so he's an oncologist. He's a medical doctor. And I am now digging really deep into these medical doctors who have these really wild, awesome stories of either patients who have died and come back that have shared their stories with them, or they themselves have died and come back. Dr. Mary Neal, very famous near-death experience. She and I have had many conversations. Her first book was called Heaven and Back, To Heaven and Back, which is a New York Times bestseller. And her second book is 7 Lessons from Heaven. And, she was dead for 30 minutes. And so I know that when you're without oxygen for like 3 minutes, you're a vegetable. And she knows that too. She's a doctor. She's a medical doctor. She's an orthopedic surgeon. And so she goes around from hospital to hospital telling her story to doctors. And sometimes only one doctor shows up, but she still tells her story. And, it's just fascinating to me. So lately, it seems, Dave, I've been doing a lot of research that's bridging the gap between science and spirituality and some of those people that are happy going back and forth into those worlds, which is kind of weird when you think about it, but more and more people are doing it now. So I'm liking that, and I'm shining a light on it, really.
We just had, 2 weeks ago tonight, Dr. Scott Kolbaba on this show, who had written a book of, he blew my mind with some of the stories that he was bringing to the table in regards to, these experiences that professional physicians are having, throughout their life that is totally defying everything that they were taught in university. Do you think it's only a matter of time between when the science and the paranormal realm finally come together as one?
Yeah, and I'm so glad you brought up Dr. Kolbaba. So I interviewed Scott for my podcast, and on the stage just last week, I had him on the stage for my Conversations with Weigel. I do these live events with people who are authors, and his book, Physicians' Untold Stories, he got 26 regular docs, regular doctors. And he says the reason he calls himself a regular doc is because he's one of those, like a family practitioner or an orthopedic surgeon or an OBGYN, but like not somebody who's in integrative medicine at all, not somebody who's dipped their toe in the woo-woo pond, right? So he and all these other physicians went on the record with these really wild stories. And I love Scott because he is not the kind of person you're going to see at a seance. He is not the kind of guy who is talking to mediums or psychics. He is all about trying to resuscitate a patient if they flatline and they're coding, and he wants to get them living again. And so for him to come out and say, I believe there's something bigger going on here. I believe there is a God or a universe or whatever you want to call it. There's a greater source. And he has witnessed these miracles that science can't explain, as have these other 26 physicians. And so when more people like Scott come forward, Dr. Kolbaba, and they're regular physicians saying, hey, here's the dealio, this is what I'm doing, then it's going to be okay. It's going to be normal. It's like the same thing with talking about aliens. If more newspapers or news organizations start telling these stories, then suddenly it's just going to become normal. It's going to be par for the course. And so that's what we can hope. I think the pendulum is swinging in the other direction. I hope it becomes much more common. I interviewed a guy named Daniel Drayson, who's a filmmaker, who did a whole film on like EVPs, electronic voice phenomenon, right? And he'd be a great guest for your show if you haven't had him already. And he's been researching all these phenomenon where, all these voices are coming through in different audio recordings and also in cameras. I mean, the visual evidence that was compiled in some of these studies that he's been researching is amazing. We're talking images of people who've been dead for hundreds of years coming through on film, and then they had all these scientists who were making sure that the film wasn't tainted, right? Or that the cameras were not touched beforehand so that there couldn't be any manipulation to the results, so that there was basically, quote, no cheating, And so when you have all of these kind of controlled studies with evidence coming forward that you cannot discount and snuff off, it's going to be more and more common. So I'm really glad you had Scott on your show, because he's a great example of someone with lots of stories that would normally have these stories.
What do you think is holding back mainstream science from delving into the paranormal a little bit more? Is it credibility, or is it the fact that they don't want to be the first to actually find out what is going on because their name could be ruined?
That's it. That's all it is. It's all credibility and fear. Like we talked about earlier at the headlines for news, fear. Nobody wants to be the first one to say, hey, we're going to write about the Queen and we might all lose our job and the whole paper is going to go under, right? Whatever it is, nobody wants to be the first to be judged. And if they do take that risk, I was really taking a risk by doing an interview. I was still working at the Chicago Tribune, and I decided for my live show, my Conversations with Weigel, that I was going to interview a medium named the Manhattan Medium. And that was a really dangerous thing to do for a journalist, for a columnist, right, for a print journalist. And also I was doing TV and radio at the time. So this was risky stuff. And people were like, and a lot of my colleagues made fun of me for it. A lot of them shut me down for it. A lot of them still are not welcoming to my research, and that's fine, but a lot of them are. And I get these notes from people on the side, like, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for writing about this. Thank you for researching this, because it happened to me. And that's what Dr. Kolbaba found, that as soon as he started talking about it openly in circles with other physicians, they pulled him aside and said, oh, I'm so glad you're talking about this, because I've got stories too. And so that is what's happening with me, is I'm finding that a lot of journalists have these little, I can't explain it, but this happened story, and they don't want to go on the record yet. And I'm just waiting for more of them to do it. A couple of them have, but I know that there are dozens more that I hope in the next few years will come out too.
Where do you think mainstream science in your research has to take this field in order to gain that credibility from their own peers?
Well, it has to be where we have the medical community, right, the MDs, communing with some of, I think that what's going to be the big game changer is when the doctors have these near-death experiences, which is what we're seeing, right? So say a doctor like Dr. Mary Neal or these other people who've never, ever believed in any of this stuff before. And then the next thing you know, they're having a near-death experience where they're, seeing the light and Grandpa Joe and all that stuff. And then they can't make heads or tails of it. So then they come back and they're like, oh my gosh, I thought I knew so much, and now I realize I didn't know a damn thing. It has to happen. Then when somebody has a groundbreaking sort of life-changing event like that, that's what it takes to get them to shift gears and finally acknowledge it's true. So it almost has to be an experiential shift. I mean, I never would have gone down this path had I not watched 3 people die in a 5-year period. When you watch someone take their last breath, it changes your life forever. And then you start wondering, well, what does it all mean? And why are we here? And will I ever see them again? And, well, that's a bummer. And your mind just starts spiraling and going into all these different directions. And then you realize that you've been living your life kind of through a telescope of narrow vision based on what you had to do every day in your day-to-day. And then when something takes the carpet and lifts it out from under you and flips you upside down, you suddenly realize how much dust is on the floor. And you're like, whoa, maybe I better take a different look at things. And only until you have your world turned upside down does that happen. People don't usually take a complete career shift unless they are forced to through a great change or inspired to by watching someone else go through a great change.
At what point, though, do you see doctors starting to turn around? Do you see a lot of doctors starting to take this subject a little bit more seriously? Because let's face it, doctors are people who love to have answers. Scientists are people who love to have answers. And yet, when we bring them all together, there's no answers for this just yet. So do you see that a lot of them are now starting to look at this type of research as a challenge to try and find out what is going on?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'll give you a great example of this. So Dr. Raymond Moody, he's the founder of the term near-death experience, and he's written, 15 books on the subject, right? So he coined the term NDE, and with all of his research, he is a medical doctor. He himself has had a near-death experience. And all the doctors say to him is that, these hallucinations are happening because of a lack of oxygen in the brain, right? It's like things are shutting down, they're hallucinating. Well, what Dr. Moody was interviewing a doctor from Italy. And this Italian doctor was explaining, and this was for Dr. Moody's research, because he was just saying, look, if we could just prove that this isn't the visuals that people who have these near-death experiences aren't from a lack of oxygen, it is from going into other dimensions, la, la, la. So here's the best example of how we can prove that theory wrong. This Italian doctor was working on a patient, young, fit guy. All of a sudden, he codes. He's dying. He's in cardiac arrest, and they cannot revive him. They're trying and trying and trying, and it's not working. So they were doing CPR for a long time, and they finally just said, okay, let's call it. All of a sudden, there's all this ruckus coming from the waiting room. This woman comes and forces her way into the OR, into the doctor where her husband was laying dead. This is the guy that died was her husband. And she screams at the doctors and says, you can't stop trying. My husband just came out. His spirit just came out into the waiting room and said, hey, tell him to not stop trying. I'm not dead. It's not my time. I'm not supposed to die today. And so here she was minding her own business, reading a magazine in the waiting room when she sees what she says was her husband's spirit barreling through and coming through that dimension into her face and says, go tell them to keep trying. So the doctor goes, okay. So they continued the CPR, and within a few minutes, the guy was breathing again. And he comes to, and he looks at the doctor, and he says, I kept trying to scream from the other side to let you know it wasn't my turn to die today, but you wouldn't listen. And so there is compelling evidence that the woman in the lobby was not on the operating table. She was not without oxygen. She was minding her own business, tuning out, watching TV or reading a magazine, and she heard and saw her briefly dead husband say, hey, honey, I'm okay. So that's pretty bizarre stuff. How do you explain that one?
You really can't. You really can't. But it even happens not even in a hospital. I remember, just a couple of nights ago, I'm in bed, and it's about 4 o'clock in the morning, and I hear my wife say, Dave, just the way she does when she's trying to wake me up because maybe our son is awake or the cat is acting up. So I sit up in bed. I'm, what do you want? What do you want? And I'm mad because I just got into that nice deep sleep. And she says to me, why did you wake me up? I said, well, you just talked to me.
Dave.
Exactly. Yeah. The weirdo factor upstairs is I don't know about her, if she's going to start talking in her sleep that way, I don't know.
Well, you know what? It's funny what you say about just dozing off into that deep state. I was just talking to a woman today who was just a regular housewife minding her own business. And then, 5 years ago, she started hearing whispers in her ear, voices. She literally thought she was losing her mind because it came so clear. It'd be like, call Joe, turn left. She was just kind of like, what? Who's there? So now she's a full clairaudient, which for people who are familiar with the terms, there's clairvoyant where you can see things, clairaudient where you can hear things, clairsentient is have a knowing, claircognizant, all these things. So she is now a full-blown, psychic medium, but she was just a mom in the suburbs minding her own business. And when she started hearing these voices, she really thought that something was wrong with her. But she was talking about when she dozed off one night, she heard all these voices. There were so many of them. It was like, what's going on? And she heard all these voices, and then she woke up and she started storming around like, get out of here, ghosts. She's yelling at what she thinks is a room full of ghosts in her room. She's going to town. And then she realized when she kind of came back, she thought what happened to her is that she just sort of tapped into the collective consciousness. Like she was hearing voices from all over the place because she was in that sort of spaced out state, half here, half not, and she tapped into the great consciousness of everything. And once you kind of realized that, like, oh, there aren't 50 ghosts in my room, she kind of calmed down a little bit, and then she kind of got back and she got centered. But really, we have great control over what we can tap into and what we can't. And those who are masters at meditation, I give so much credit to, because it's really hard to master meditating, and it's really hard to quiet your mind. And there are some people who are really, really good at it, and I really envy them because they have that ability to just calm things, center things, and not get caught up in too many, outside sources that could, just kind of like an assault of the senses, if you will.
Are you good at meditating? Because I got to be honest with you, I'm absolutely terrible at it. Just terrible.
Oh, no, yeah, I am not good at all. I mean, I try. I've gotten to the point now where I just try for a minute 30. If I can do that, I'm grateful. I have a long way to go. But it is proven scientifically, because I'm really big on scientific facts, just because, that's kind of what our entire medical system has sort of held its hat on, right? They hang their hat on these facts. And that's something that people, like when you're a reporter, you want your sources. You want to be able to call somebody, preferably on a landline, and say, well, I just talked to Johnny and he told me blah, blah, blah. So it can be traced. It can be tracked, right? And so it's proven that if you change your thinking for a minute and 30 seconds, like from something that would make you stressed out, say there's a person in your life that pisses you off or stresses you out, instead of going there and thinking about all the reasons of why they make you mad, if for a minute 30 you can just shift gears to something that makes you happy, you can literally rewire the neurons in your brain so that person doesn't increase your cortisol levels, your stress hormones. And I try, I'm like, oh man, if I could just be Buddha about, my aunt, or if I could just be Buddha about this person or that person, then I can really not let it bother me so much, because we just let things go off to the races, as they say. And it's only a minute 30 is what you need, according to many neurologists that I've interviewed. So we have the power.
And on that note, I guess we're going to step out for a quick break here on Spaced Out Radio. Jen Weigel is our guest tonight. We're talking intuition, spirituality, how do you find it, how do you meditate, and so much more. We got one more hour with Jen before we are joined by Joe Root from Spaced Out Saturdays and Lighting the Void on the Fringe FM. Jen's website, jenweigel.com. Highly suggest you check it out. We'll be back with more on Spaced Out Radio right after this.
Hey, space travelers, it's Joe Roop, your host of Spaced Out Saturdays. Come join me as we explore the realms of the paranormal, the esoteric, and everything in between every Saturday night at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern. You know the truth is out there. Don't get caught sleepwalking. Come join Spaced Out Saturdays. That's every Saturday night, 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, right here on spacedoutradio.com.
Psychic Sundays, spiritual communication, ET contact, Sasquatch in your backyard. We will have it all on Cosmic Passport with me, Elizabeth Anglin. Each Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, at spacedoutradio.com, I will take you on a journey of enlightenment. The goal is learning from the soul on out. We'd love it if you joined our experience. Cosmic Passport, heard Sundays at spacedoutradio.com.
365 days a year, we're in the field, investigating UFO sightings, talking to alien abductees, and visiting secret military locations like Area 51. We're UFO Seekers, official partner of Spaced Out Radio. Follow our daily search for the truth at ufoseekers.com or like us on social media. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
From coast to coast to coast, Blacklight Uncharted is taking on the paranormal across Canada. From ghostly hauntings to the UFOs flying above in conjunction with MUFON Canada, we're closely investigating what's going on in the northern skies and checking out the apparitions that walk among us. Check out our videos right here at spacedoutradio.com. We want to know your thoughts, we want to hear your experiences, and we want you to share your stories. The answers are out there, and we intend to find them.
Would you like to become one of our space travelers? All you have to do is click on the Space Travelers icon at spacedoutradio.com. For only $5 a month, you can get access to some great prizes, as well as private monthly shows, newsletters, and a members-only section on our website. Become a space traveler today.
It's paranormal news at its finest. Welcome to The Encounter. At spacedoutradio.com, The Encounter online is SOR's trusted news source for everything weird and strange going on around the world. This is news editor Eric Markham. Our team of journalists are scouring the planet for those strange stories that rarely make the mainstream. No fear-mongering or fake news here. Head over to spacedoutradio.com and encounter The Encounter.
Want to learn more about aliens, cover-ups, conspiracies, cryptids, and the paranormal? All you have to do is tune in S4 as we take over the Spaced Out Radio night, starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, each and every Saturday night, right after Spaced Out Saturdays. Hi there, this is Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. Join me, Corey Ruiz, and friends as we discuss the hot topics of the night. It's fun, entertaining, and as dark as the night. Find us at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
Are you an experiencer? Have you had run-ins with strange creatures you can't explain? ETs, Dogman, Bigfoot, werewolves? They're enough to scare the daylights out of anyone. Hi there, I'm Butch Witkowski from your 4-Cop. And on the last Monday of every month, you can listen to me and the host, Dave Scott, talk about the weird and the strange being reported on Spaced Out Radio. I'm going to bring my investigations and sources, you bring your experiences, and we'll figure out the rest together. Strange Days on Spaced Out Radio. Come tune us in at spacedoutradio.com.
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
Are you interested in advertising on Spaced Out Radio? Head to our website at spacedoutradio.com and click on our advertising tab. There, you will find an assortment of ways you can get your product out there with us, from radio commercials to banners and social media. Have a product you like our hosts to endorse? We can do that too. Visit spacedoutradio.com for more details.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
Do you want to know what's really going on in your world? Do you have questions about who you can trust in the mainstream media? Then look no further than the Rebel Planet. Come get the straight answers right here at spacedoutradio.com. Join me, Jamie Sexton, creator of Rebel Planet News, as I fill you in on the stories behind the stories. All you truth seekers, be sure to tune in to Rebel Planet on spacedoutradio.com the third Thursday of every month.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. And hit us up on Twitter using the hashtag SpacedOutRadio. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the second hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Great to have you with us. Tomorrow night on the program, Jamie Sexton is going to join us for the Rebel Planet as we talk alternative news, what's going on around the world. Jamie comes in the third Thursday of every month to break everything down for us. We get going at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to welcome in everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network York, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We're also live on The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio out of Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the valued listener. Head on over to freedomslips.com and donate today. We're also live on Periscope. Hi, Periscope. How you doing? Glad you are joining us, especially the new people checking us out on Spaced Out Radio for the first time. We are brand new to Periscope. We're almost a week into using this format. I kind of like it. I know you do too, so we're going to continue. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Quixotic. Quixotic is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, if you want to follow us on social media, you can do so on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio. Give our Facebook page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. On Instagram, follow me at Dave Scott SOR. Pardon me, Quixotic. Quixotic is the password, not Quixotic. Quixotic. Thank you, sorry. You can also read up on the encounter online, rock out to some Bumblefoot, shop at our Spaced Out Radio store, watch videos from UFO seekers, Contact TV, and so much more when you check out spacedoutradio.com, because we got a plethora of happenings around there. So check it out today. Now, for the final time tonight, because she's only coming on for 2 hours, is Jenniffer Weigel. Her website, jenweigel.com, Weigel spelled W-E-I-G-E-L. She is a journalist, author, reporter, spiritual researcher, as we like to call her around here, and just a darn good person for coming on in tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Jen, thank you so much for being with us. Always a pleasure. And, you know, right during the break, we were talking a little bit about, you know, I asked you a simple question, you know, we're a little bit late into the year, but how was your Christmas and New Year's? And you actually said, well, I got an interesting story to tell about a haunted bed and breakfast you stayed at.
Yeah. I have been privy to witness many ghost busts in my research, of course, because if you're going to be talking to mediums and psychics, chances are ghosts are going to be part of the conversation at some point, whether you're experiencing it firsthand or the person you're talking to tells you they're experiencing it firsthand. And so for somebody who, I mean, as a kid, I would know that creepy feeling. You know, we have all had that experience, right, where you've walked into a building or you walk into somewhere and you're kind of like, ooh. And I went to a really cool haunted town, which I'm sure you're familiar with, Lilydale. Lilydale is the home of the spiritualist movement, and it's in upstate New York in the United States. And this town was founded in the 1848, I believe. And spiritualism is the religion that believes that the spirit lives on and you can contact them at any time, right? So all of the pastors of the spiritualist church are actually mediums. They have to pay, like, you know, pass all these tests and stuff. So my first encounter with a really haunted town was Lilydale. The whole town kind of had that feeling where you felt like you had to look over your shoulder and you get that little creepy feeling, or get a cold breeze, right? Or you'd feel like a wind wisp by your cheek. So over the holidays, I went to a little town in Illinois called East Dubuque, which is my dad's whole side of the family likes to kind of take over a bed and breakfast. And normally we go into this one town called Galena, which is the home of Ulysses S. Grant. And so that town has a lot of historic energy, but it was full. We didn't have a place to stay, so we go to the neighboring town 11 miles away in East Dubuque and stayed in this really old, it dated back to 1867. I know that's not really old in the grand scheme of things, but, you know, in Illinois, it's pretty darn old. And so everybody was complaining about little cold spots here and there in different pockets, and you would hear kind of mumblings, and you're kind of thinking, did I just hear that? And so as I was sleeping in our room, and my son was in the room with me because he was just too terrified to sleep in his own room, and I got it. Because, I mean, this house, you could hear creaking floors. Everybody heard, like, footsteps going up and down on the top floor, and everyone just kind of tried to ignore it with their headphones on, right? So I actually woke up, and I saw a gray mist kind of swirling to my left that then formed into a face right in front of me. And I'm telling you, as as much as I'm breathing right now, I saw this face, and it was creepy, and it was a boy, and it had longer hair, like maybe a teenager or a preteen boy, and it was just this sadness in this face. And also, Dave, it was pinning me down. I couldn't move, and it was one of those things where I was so scared I couldn't scream, and I couldn't move anything. And so I managed to get my eyes to the right, and I looked over, and I saw my son was fine. He was sleeping soundly, but I was really struggling. I woke up the next day, Dave, and I had bruises on my forearm from the struggle that I had with this thing. And it was really, really creepy. So I had to FaceTime a Ghostbuster friend of mine for some help immediately. I was like, okay, excuse me, I'm in dire need of your assistance here, please. So I contacted my medium friend, one of my many medium friends, because I'm like the Angie's List for mediums and psychics these days. And she kind of guided me through what was going on, and that it was a trapped soul. And apparently I was, unbeknownst to me, I was staying in the room that had the portal. Of course I was. So, it was a real eye-opener. Let's just say I didn't get any sleep at all. The next day, the plumbing was down in the whole place. Not one room had running water. I mean, it was just like this. Whatever was going on in this place, they did not want our family there. And I don't know why, because we're a really fun crew. But yeah, that was my Christmas. Although it was before Christmas, but it left a mark, literally. I've never had that happen before, where I had a physical harm to my body from something that was going on. And, a lot of people would say, oh, you were just dreaming, but how do you explain the bruise? And so, of course, I did some research into this to see how many other accounts there are of this. And, oh, my gosh, it's amazing. As you know, I'm sure you've interviewed them on your show. The multiple accounts of people who've had physical altercations with these energies is staggering.
It's not fun when it does happen because, you don't know what happened. Unless you're right conscious when it happens, these things that happen in the middle of the night are very difficult for absolutely everybody to figure out. So when you had that experience, did it keep you up trying to figure out what the hell was actually going on?
Oh, yeah, I was terrified to go back to sleep. I was throwing out. I mean, I was raised Christian, but it's not like I didn't have a rosary handy, but I was throwing out every prayer I could remember, and it was really, really scary. I did not get a wink of sleep from 2:00 in the morning on. And so the next night I was actually, I felt a little bit better because my friend had done some work, remotely on the room, had done some clearing and apparently shut the portal. Fabulous. So, I felt better going into it the next night, but there was a lot of activity the following night as well. So it didn't stop the activity. And, more people comparing notes around breakfast were saying how they heard different noises, and that no matter, one room was so cold they had the heat up to 85 just to try to get it, and it was still cold. I mean, it's just, the list goes on. And apparently this inn has a lot of history from, people smuggling. It's just over the border of Illinois and Iowa, another state, the neighboring state. And so there were all sorts of things going on with the Underground Railroad during slavery and Civil War stuff. I mean, there's just a lot of history around this particular property. And anyone out there who's listening who's familiar with that kind of ley lines and certain vibrations where, you can build something on top of somewhere where there was chaos and you're still going to have the vibration of chaos.
Were you forewarned that this was a haunted place?
Oh, gosh, no. No, there are lots of places in the town where they actually promote it, like, Al Capone, the famous gangster used to own this place, or, whatever, other places. But no, this was not a promoted haunted place. Because sometimes, that's what people want, right? It's a tourist attraction. But this was not billed as a haunted place and a ghost busting place. I mean, there are lots of places. I'm sure you have them there as well as we have them here in the States where they build up whole tours and they make an entire event out of the darn thing. And let's have a seance and let's do this and let's do that. And my research now over the past few years especially, you got to be really prepared for attachments if you want to go into a seance. It's basically like opening yourself up to have a renter, someone take me over, please. Come on in. How you doing? We just have no idea what some of these energies are capable of. I don't think we want to know sometimes.
No, I fully agree with exactly what you're saying. And I live in one of those towns because my community is settled right on the Gold Rush Trail that starts in California and ends up in Alaska and the Klondike of the Yukon. And the spirits around here, they are everywhere. I mean, this is like haunted central around here, and at times it gets a little bit ridiculous with everything that kind of goes on. And like the museum where I do a tour at, I mean, some of the things that we get happening there, it's absolutely incredible. And we've come to the conclusion recently that for a lot of these spirits, and of course we can't prove it, we can only surmise with our conclusion, but it's almost like we get spirits just kind of wandering through to, see what's going on, what's happening in the area while they're still making their way up or down, up for gold or down with the gold. So it gets a little hairy at times in there, but it kind of makes you wonder what is actually happening on the other side.
Well, exactly. A lot. And apparently multiple dimensions. It's lots of things happening just like what's happening right now, right? I mean, now my life is taken this bizarre turn where so many people are sharing their stories of either hauntings or healings or mediums or psychics. And so I'll give you an example. I actually tweeted this the other day that I just got the most hilarious text. Hey, Jen, can you assist my friend in getting rid of a ghost in her basement who she said looks like Mrs. Garrett from The Facts of Life? I mean, that's like, this is how I started my day, a few days ago, looking at your phone and going, wait a minute. And this character that was on this show, The Facts of Life, I mean, it's just like she kind of looks like an elderly Lucille Ball, And so this is happening all the time, right? But I just wasn't aware of it because I was in my journalist bubble, right? And I was reporting on my hit and run accidents or fires or, corruption in politics. And that was my beat. And that's what I did. And now that I've opened myself up to these different conversations, I mean, I interviewed a guy, Charlie Goldsmith, who is a hands-on healer, who is the star of the TV show here in the States on TLC called The Healer, which is great. I highly recommend people go on Netflix or on Amazon and watch it. But this guy at the age of 19 just suddenly had this ability to put his hands on people and heal the most amazing things. I mean, from chronic illnesses to bizarre rashes to, it's just, he hasn't delved into cancer yet, but it looks like he could be going there. Who knows? He's open to anything. And this guy was minding his own business and suddenly gets hit with this gift, and he doesn't know how to explain it. And so now he's working with medical doctors and hospitals in Australia and here in the U.S. to try to help these chronic cases that just can't be solved. And I just tell people, this is happening now. There are all of these cases out there where science is coming together with someone like a Charlie Goldsmith or different healers, and they're scratching their heads and saying, I don't have all the answers. Maybe this guy can help me fill in the blanks, or this woman can help me fill in the blanks, and let's see what we can come up with. And maybe that will help us all draw some conclusions that make sense. We can't at all think that we know better than that person or that person or that person. It might take 17 different minds to come to the conclusion that this disease can be healed. But let's all put our research on the table and see what we find out.
You mentioned that all of a sudden you're getting a lot of paranormal calls recently in regards to, people having ghostly experiences. Is this a whole different door opening for you in your education of the spirituality?
Well, yeah, I am now having witnessed, I've been on ghost busts. Like I told you, I was attacked by something, and then I was a witness to other people being attacked to something in a ghost bust in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I was goosed by a ghost. I mean, like literally, like it squeezed my rear end. I was like, okay, seriously? Now we got like a a perverted ghost? This is great. I have witnessed things that I would never ever have expected I would witness at this stage in my life. But I know what I've experienced. And so now I'm just like, all right, how do we protect ourselves? And that's what for people who want to dabble in this and they're so fascinated by it, you really have to be careful when you put yourself in these situations to be around these energies, because you could get hurt. I mean, I don't want to build on the fear thing, but if you walk around unconscious to the fact that there are energies that don't want you to be there, right? And I mean, you and I shared in the commercial break, like, if there is a place that is so haunted that anyone who walks in, gets a lamp thrown at their head, you are dealing with energies that don't want you around. And there are a lot of those energies that we can't see or touch, but they are hovering, right? They exist. And so we have to really protect ourselves. And I've gotten to the point now where I'm not Pollyanna about it. I'm not ignorant to the fact that there are things I don't understand, but I also don't want to, put myself or anyone in my family in harm's way. So you really have to go with people who know what they're doing. If you're going to, like just today when I was talking to this woman who was the mother that became a medium 5 years ago out of nowhere that I was telling you about, she now hears voices in her ears, but at least she knows what they are, right? She's a clairaudient psychic medium. She got a call from somebody saying, hey, Sherry, can you help me with this ghost bust? I'm not quite sure I know what I'm doing. And I'm like, oh, God, that sounds like a bad sitcom waiting to happen. Like, two psychics not sure what they're doing on a ghost bust. But you can't just put up a sign and say you're a ghostbuster because you know how to burn sage in a room. That's not how it works. I think that there are generations and generations of people who've done this successfully before. And just like anything, you have to learn from the experts. You have to learn from people who've done this before. You can't just pretend you know what you're doing and pull out a Ouija board and call it a day, I
got a question coming in from Claudia in the SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook. She's asking, Jenniffer, have you ever used a healer? And if so, did you feel the energy exchange? And have you ever had an out-of-body experience? If so, what did you see? Let's take the first one first. If you've ever used an energy healer and felt the exchange.
Oh, yeah, completely. I am a Reiki master, so I've taken classes on energy healing to the point where I could now do it for, other people if I so chose. But I, like this Charlie Goldsmith guy on that show TLC, I have come across many renowned, respectable healers, and there are some that are not respectable, that, you have to do your research on these people. So if somebody that I really respect says to me, Jen, you've got to try this person. I went, I had lower back pain. Now I feel wonderful. It's amazing. You'll love her. And so I go. And I mean, I would say within the last year, have become very close with a woman who's fourth generation Guatemalan shaman. She does healing techniques that were taught, through generations in her family. And everybody who's been on her table feels, years younger when they get off. And it is incredible. When they get off that table, they feel transformed. So yes, I have experienced energetic healing to the point where, I went and met John of God. A lot of people know who John of God is. And, John of God was in Toronto, and I went up there and I had a healing where I had to fall. I literally almost fell asleep after the, quote, psychic surgery. That's kind of a term I'm not very comfortable saying, but whatever. A lot of us were taken down in this area and chosen for this, quote, psychic surgery. And afterwards, I had to sleep for 6 straight hours from 10 in the morning until 4 in the afternoon. I couldn't open my eyes. It was unbelievable. And then I woke up again and I thought, something wild has happened. And it was just so difficult to explain. So I've experienced that several times, the healing piece, by meeting really interesting, credible healers and being able to benefit from what they've been taught and what they have done. The energy exchange has been very, very powerful.
Have you ever met or chatted with a lady named Sandy Mack?
You know what? I've heard of Sandy Mack. I have not chatted with Sandy. Tell me about Sandy.
You have to. You literally have to, because this is a lady who actually professes that she can heal people or help heal people in their lives today by taking them into a past life regression to where the pain started or what happened to cause that pain in that area. And she actually did this with a friend of mine named Corey, and Corey suffers from epilepsy. And she's pretty much got rid of Corey's epilepsy.
Well, this shamanic healer that I'm talking about does that as well. She can trace back to generations of where this pain began, because maybe you were stabbed by a spear in your left shoulder blade. You know, technically there is no time or space, right? According to physics, it's all happening at once, right? Everything's happening at once. So it's like the universe is separated by shower curtains. So there's a version of you going on right now in Egypt and a version of you maybe in the Renaissance or what have you. And so maybe there's a version of you where you're like an indigenous person and you get speared in the shoulder blade. And that has left an imprint in your physical, energetic, spiritual body that causes you pain in this one. And I'm a big believer in that too, because I've interviewed several people who specialize in past life regression. And my first and second book, that was kind of one of my very first things that I dipped into, because I wondered, I was curious, you know, that book, Many Lives, Many Masters, about the hypnotherapy and learning about past lives to help people with certain phobias, or why you suddenly feel so connected to someone you could just meet. I was very fascinated by that. And Brian Weiss, who wrote Many Lives, Many Masters, you know, was a Yale professor. So he was a professor at a very esteemed university coming out with this research. You know, I also interviewed a guy named Dr. Jeffrey Rediger, who is writing a book now that will be out next December. You should interview him when his book comes out. But he's writing a book all about miracles, similar to Dr. Scott Kolbaba from Physicians Untold Stories. He's from Harvard Medical School, Dr. Jeffrey Rediger, and he also met John of God, but he went all the way to Brazil to witness John of God do surgeries without anesthesia with knives, where he's cutting people open and taking out tumors, and they're not bleeding. Like, he witnesses this all firsthand. And so he and I both talked about our John of God experiences, and it's like, I'm a journalist. We need our credible sources. But how do you explain the fact that I had a, quote, psychic surgery and then had to sleep for 6 hours? He's a physician from Harvard Medical School, and he witnessed surgeries where people are cut open and they are not bleeding. How do you explain this? You can't. But we both witnessed it, you know. So that is what I think is going to happen more and more, is that you can't explain it in simple terms. You just have witness after witness after witness talking about it and giving it value and making it matter.
Follow-up question from Claudia that we got to get to. Have you ever had an out-of-body experience? If so, what did you see?
Well, I feel like a lot of this is out of body, right? I mean, experiencing a psychic surgery and then sleeping for 6 hours was probably pretty out of body. But as far as like floating up above and looking down and seeing my body and seeing the room, or like traveling, astral traveling through the house, I've had people tell me that. I interviewed one medium. She told me that she, like, you know, fell asleep, but really she kind of traveled down the stairs and went into the kitchen and saw her mom making dinner, and, you know, had like this 360 vision of everything going on, and then came back into her body and was like, oh, what a bummer, I'm back in my body. I have not had anything like that. Like, a lot of people I've interviewed who've had their near-death experiences explain having a floating above the scene and looking down at everything taking place. So, no, I have not had one of those. But that dream or that experience with the ghost that I talked about, you know, in the Haunted Mansion was kind of out of body. I mean, I felt like I couldn't move my body, and yet I know I was trying to. So if that counts, then maybe, but I don't think that's what she was asking. Do you?
I think it was.
Okay.
Yeah. You have also done a lot of work with shamans, where a lot of them get their experiences. If they're not First Nations, they train with First Nations people. Do you find that the old medicines before, you know, modern medicine came and took over still do so much more for the body by healing the mind, body, and soul than a lot of today's prescriptions or procedures that doctors recommend?
Well, it's interesting. It's funny because Dr. Scott Kolbaba and I were just talking about this on the stage, that, you know, if you're in a car accident and you've got a broken leg, then your leg is going, you know, 90-degree angle, you're not going to want a shaman with a rattle, right? you want a surgeon that's going to put your leg back together. So there is a place for modern day medicine in a lot of ways in trauma, right? Or in tonsillectomies, or taking out your gallbladder, or, these kinds of things. So I don't want to knock medicine and say it's not useful. I mean, my dad had a brain tumor, and so a surgeon went in and took out the brain tumor. He didn't get all the cancer, though. So then we went and did all sorts of different therapies to try to help shrink the tumors that were left that couldn't be operated on. I think combining it, I call it using the combo platter. You should use a little of modern medicine for certain things, but you should never discount the power of some of these rituals that have been around for thousands of years. There's just too much evidence showing that there's power in so many ways that we have no idea, and we just got to try and open our mind and tap into it.
Do you think, though, that modern medicine maybe could take some lessons from shaman that you have worked with, or shaman who have done these particular procedures for millennia?
Yeah, and the only reason why it won't happen, though, is because of fear of lawsuits. Because I know some healers and shaman who have worked with the doctors, but before they get started, the patient has to sign like 20 sheets, right? They have to sign away their life and promise they're not going to sue, if they have weird dreams after, or, who knows? So that's the problem, is that because of our lawsuit-hungry society, I don't know if they'll ever fully be integrated. I don't. I would love to see it, but I just don't know if it's possible. I'd love to be proven wrong.
From out-of-body experiences, I was listening to one of your lectures that you were giving, and you were talking about near-death experiences, that this is something that you have been looking into recently. Is this a topic that just intrigues you, or is it something that you think you are interested in because you are kind of going towards trying to piece together the scientific side with the spiritual side? How did you get involved with looking into that?
Well, I was introduced to people who've died and love to talk about it, really. And I think there's no better gauge of what happens when we die than someone who's done it. And so I definitely there's a organization here in Chicago, and there's an international association of near-death experiences, right? IANDS is the acronym. And there's a branch here in Chicago, and I was introduced to them, and they have these meetings out of a hospital, and people come and share their stories, and it's believed that 1 in 10 people have had a near-death experience. That's phenomenal. So I think there are so many people out there who are either survivors of near-death experiences, psychic and medium, or healers, and they just don't want to talk about it. If you think about it, 1 in 10, that's a pretty large number.
Were there any similarities between the cases of the people you investigated on this?
Oh, absolutely. But, I think with the children, this is what blows my mind. So I interviewed a woman named PMH Atwater who had 3 near-death experiences, and now she does a lot of research predominantly with children. And she shared with me that one of the things that and Paul Perry also is a wonderful journalist who's written, I think, 9 books on near-death experiences. And he's co-authored some books with Raymond Moody, Dr. Moody, the guy I talked about earlier who told me that story about the Italian doctor. And so Paul Perry said this as well. The children who have had near-death experiences aren't out researching near-death experiences. And their similarities are so unbelievable. They're not out comparing notes, right? You're not going to find 5-year-olds in near-death experience chat rooms. You're just not. So for these pure souls that come through with these unbelievable stories, with this evidence and all these similarities of the bright light and the unconditional love and feeling like you're going down a tunnel and being met by your loved ones on the other side and being completely out of pain and no longer in your body. And a lot of them are told they have a choice to maybe go or not go. And so for all of those cases, the children, as with Paul Perry and PMH Atwater, they say the children are the most compelling to them because they know they aren't comparing notes. And PMH Atwater told me that the children actually report that when they see someone praying a heartfelt prayer, when they were on the other side, right, when they were supposedly in heaven or wherever they thought they were in the light, they could see a prayer going from the person who was saying the prayer to the recipient, and it showed up the way they described it, like a rainbow going from the heart of the prayer, the person saying the prayer, to the heart of the person who they were praying for. And that, to me, is just a very powerful visual, because how beautiful and pure, coming from a child, that they say they can see the energy and the intent of a heartfelt prayer. That's pretty cool.
It's heavy when it involves children, because a lot of times, you know, not only are they having these near-death experiences, but they're also recalling a lot of stuff from reincarnation episodes as well. And, you know, I have a friend of mine whose daughter, literally since she was a year and a half old, she has been saying that, you know, when she first started talking, she kept on, when she was a baby, could barely talk, she kept on saying boat. And it, eventually, when she, at about 3 years old, she saw something on the Titanic, and she put two and two together where she could recall literally drowning. And I remember I had a guest on about a year and a half ago who believes that he was actually the one designer of the, in a reincarnated life, obviously, but he felt he was one of the designers of the Titanic on the maiden voyage. And when I mentioned this guy's name, well, his name back then, my friend's daughter remembered exactly who it was. It was, now a lot of people will say, well, she could have read it in a book, and quite frankly, she could have. But some of the features, like, she won't tell it to me, but when she sits down and her mom says, well, what did you see back then? And this has been going on, well, she'll be 19 this year, same age as my daughter. So this has been going on 16 years where she has been giving her mother all sorts of information, and usually during her birthday, she's actually had quite a few Titanic birthdays where everybody comes dressed in, you know, all the girls come over and dressed in garb from that era. It's been absolutely amazing how children, you know, if we open up our ears to them, the stories that we will hear if we just believe them.
So there are two movies that are out there that are supposedly pretty accurate to those who have had these sort of, you know, like cross, you know, memories of past lives and such. Chances Are, which is a movie with Robert Downey Jr. and Sybil Shepherd and Ryan O'Neal. I mean, we're talking like circa 1990 when this one came out. Find it on Netflix. But basically, Robert Downey Jr. comes back and, you know, he's living his life and everything's fine, but he's like a college student, and he starts having these flashes of his previous life because, you know, the soul beforehand, the data wasn't wiped clean. So it's like really inconvenient for his current life. But people tell me who have had these experiences that that's a very similar movie to the reality. And another one is called Ghost Town. Have you seen that one, Dave?
I have not, no.
Okay, so that's got Ricky Gervais and Greg Kinnear and Téa Leoni. It's a really, Kristen Wiig from Saturday Night Live is in it. It's a very funny movie, but Ricky Gervais plays this dentist who goes in for a regular procedure like a colonoscopy, but he accidentally flatlines in the procedure, and he comes out of it, and he is a full-blown medium. You know, dead people are all in his room and wanting, and one of the big lessons from that movie that a lot of mediums have told me that's so true is that a lot of these spirits are stuck because they can't elevate and move on because we here don't know all the facts about something. So maybe two sisters aren't talking because of a misunderstanding when one of the sisters actually wrote a letter to the other sister, but that other sister never found the letter and it's stuck under the carpet by the front door. And if she could just see that the sister was trying to ask for forgiveness through that letter before she died, then maybe she could forgive the sister that's now dead. You know, all these things, like the reason they hover and they stay close is because, the foreman from that construction site is blaming himself for the forklift going down on 3 of his guys, but really it was his fault in the forklift, and one of the spirits wants to let him know that so he can let go of the guilt. The guilt the people on this side feel actually keep these spirits close because they can't evolve unless some of the guilt and pain that we feel here is let go. It's really interesting. I recommend both those movies if anybody's bored tonight or tomorrow.
Well, not right now, though. Not right now, though.
No, not now.
They have to listen to us, and we're commanding that attention right now. We're commanding it. With the near-death experience, do you find that more of the stories that you have heard and researched are more detailed from men to women or women to men? Is there a difference in the stories by the sex?
I have not noticed a difference by the sex, no. And I'm sure there could be some more broken down research to isolate that. I would wonder if Dr. Jeffrey Long, who created the Near Death Experience Research Foundation, has any statistics on that. I have not come across anything that tells me either way, that it's more with men or less with men. No, sorry about that.
What about then people who are having dark imagery? You know, because we always hear the peace, love, and light stories, but very rarely, even though once in a while it comes out, people are actually having dark images of shadow beings and what they feel is demons around them, and it's a very scary, terrifying experience for them.
Yes, so I have not interviewed anyone who's been in those dark energies, but I've interviewed people who have, and they've compiled that data. And recently, Dr. Jeffrey Long just told me about that. It's a small percentage of people who do, and what some of these mediums tell me that is that they're not fully in the light. It's like they're still kind of, their soul is scared about judgment. Their soul or their religious background or their belief system is not allowing them to go there yet. And so it's kind of keeping them slightly earthbound, that they believe if you really are in the light, even if you were a murderer, you're not going to be in like an inferno. What you have is this thing called the life review, where you feel everything that you put out. So if you were a mass murderer, you're going to feel the impact that those murders had on every single person that you hurt emotionally and physically. So that's a pretty hellacious life review. That could be contributing, like that would be what the mediums say is a version of hell. If you were a loving person, you watch the life review and you feel the love that you put out. And so that's the story that I've been told. But there are a small percentage of people that some of these people have researched that have had a dark experience. And the mediums I've interviewed say that that's because they weren't fully in the light, and their belief systems are preventing them from going there.
You know, that makes a lot of sense. I had a friend of mine die about a year and, let's say about 15 months ago. And about 4 hours after I found out that he had passed away, he was quite atheist. And I had an absolute anxiety attack about him sitting on this stairwell, because I knew he was found on a stairwell, and he was surrounded by darkness, and I could see eyes all around. And I actually got a spiritual friend of mine to walk me through, where I don't know the proper terminology of it, but I channeled myself in there to help him out. And he was sitting there not knowing what the hell I was doing there. It weirded me out because I'd never experienced anything that dark. I was able to tell the family that he died of a heart attack. This was weeks before the autopsy, that he died of a heart attack. He was known every now and again to dabble in cocaine. That his system was clean. They wouldn't have found any traces in that, and that his heart just gave out. There was one piece of information, and I won't share this publicly, that I knew about, but I just cannot share it. And I never told the family that part, because that entire story of what I went through that night, it went around our friends like wildfire. And I literally have, out of that group, a total of 0 friends now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's unfortunate, but you know.
Yeah. In the meantime, I was able to help this guy get out of that situation. We went, because when you're astral traveling or when you're channeling, I don't really know the difference. Okay, but I had to get him out of there, and I convinced him to come with me, and we went to the place where I taught him how to fish for salmon on the river. And once we got there, he just eventually, I showed him how. He's like, how the hell did we get here? I said, dude, we're on the other side, man. We can do whatever we want.
Right.
And then he was like, well, can I go see my parents? Can I see my twin brother and everything? And I'm like, yeah, man, just go for it. Go for it. And, about 20 minutes later, he was gone. We just chatted. It was a beautiful experience. I just wish it didn't cost me all of my friends. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
but it did.
That's unfortunate. And, and then, you got a little house cleaning. It's time to bring in like minds with the vibration that you can know, trust, and respect, right? So maybe that was a blessing, even if it's difficult, because you only want to be surrounded by people that you can trust. I mean, that's what a true friend is.
Well, it did cost me my best friend of 28 years.
Okay. And
yeah. That one hurt. But what do you do?
That does hurt. But, what are you going to do? If you guys aren't on the same page about, values and character, then maybe it was time to go.
Well, and that could be very much what it is. Could be very much what it is, but I mean, there is a danger to it. I mean, if we are able to walk people through from the other side, whether it's through astral travel or whether it's through channeling or whatever you want to call it, really doesn't matter. We should take that initiative to help, because people, when they're in that dark side, they're scared. They don't know what is going on because they expected to see nothing when they crossed over.
Right. And that's the thing, is that we all have the power within us to do so much more than we give ourselves credit. And we reach outside of ourselves to other people to have all the power. But, we can learn a lot of these things ourselves, right? And so I talked earlier about finding experts of people who've done things before, because I wouldn't pretend that I know how to put someone's leg back together. I didn't go to medical school. I'm not a surgeon, right? I'm not going to do something I don't know how to do, but I would be very capable of learning that if I chose to go down that path. So if we choose to do things like what you explained, it's possible for all of us to learn to take a spirit into the light if we so choose, right? If we find ourselves in a really weird zone, I mean, just go with it. But also, you mentioned the drugs earlier. I've interviewed a lot of people who say that when people dabble in drugs, it's like letting down all of your guard. I mean, you're basically sort of putting up the for rent sign, and that your body is for rent, because there are energies that are hovering around looking to jump in. This is what they tell me. I've never experienced, I don't know, but they're looking to jump into a body that's sort of not fully there, right? If you're really wasted or you're dabbling in a lot of drugs, chances are you're being rented. There's an energy in your system. And, I interviewed Echo Bodine, who said, like, you can look in the mirror and you can literally see that you're not yourself. Like, there's something else joining you. And you have to, when you wake up the next day and you're back and you're sort of foggy and you're like, oh, wow, I really tied one on last night. You got to look in the mirror and command any energy that is not yours, that was not welcome, to leave, go back to the source for healing, and get out. Because apparently it's a possibility. We could be taken over. And I mean, like I said, I'm glad I have not looked in the mirror and been like, who's that? But I have been around people where I'm like, wow, they were not acting like themselves. They were just totally bizarre. Their behavior was not like themselves. So something was going on. Something bigger could be going on. So we just need to be aware of that.
Intuitively speaking, when you are around people, can you tell who is connected and who isn't?
Well, I can tell when someone's fishing, and I can tell when someone's ego is getting in the way. If somebody is truly channeling something divine and bigger than them, and they're just reporting what they're hearing, then I have more faith in them. But if they put their spin on it, that means their ego is getting in the way. And, I'm sorry, but if God or an angel or somebody wants to communicate a message, it's not going to be like, oh, girl, you better get rid of him because please. It's like, just report what you're hearing or report what you're feeling. And that is what I've witnessed a lot of. People's egos are getting in the way of delivering something divine. And unfortunately, fame and TV shows and people trying to get into the spotlight, it's taken over a lot of people who I think maybe were divinely gifted, but then they get taken over by the spotlight and the need to be famous, and that clouds their judgment. And it also, I think, affects their abilities. I've met some people that I know dabble in the dark, like black magic, and they claim to be psychic mediums, but they're in the darkness more than they're in the light. And that's unfortunate. But, I don't spend my time around those people. People do what they're going to do, and I'm going to just say, okay, you're going to take your black magic over there, have fun with that. So, I have seen, and then I've seen some people that might be really great with one person. Like there was this one really highly recommended intuitive. I interviewed the guy. He tried to pick up some stuff on me, and I'm open to it, and he got nothing. So some people just work better with other personalities, It's a chemistry thing, but I have definitely been around some people that have gotten zero. It's like nothing is on, and you're like, wow. And you've written how many books? It's interesting.
Do you ever get to the point where, psychic people, we hear so many of them who are fake, who are bilking people out of tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes their entire retirement savings, to get ghosts out of their house or to communicate with, Aunt Martha, who was supposed to have buried hundreds of pieces of gold back in the old farm. You know what I'm saying? There's a lot of things that happen out there. Are you able to teach people to know who is legit and who isn't? Are you at that point in your own intuition?
Well, no, I tell anybody, and this doesn't take intuition to be able to know. If somebody tells you that they can lift the curse off you and your family for $5,000, if you're paying more than $500 for some service, I mean, I know some psychics that charge $800. I think that's a little high personally. But basically anybody who's dipping into the thousands to get this work done, you're getting ripped off. Stop right there. I'm sorry. I don't think anybody can have a hex on their family and need that much work done for that much money. That to me is somebody using, I think a lot of people might have some sense of intuition, but use it for the wrong reasons. And I've heard story after story. I mean, this one poor woman, oh God, she was close to six figures. I mean, that's almost $100,000 of giving some person. And I said, you just got hosed. I mean, and shame on you for continually going there, really. Anyone who's listening right now who's hooked on a psychic, if you can't get up and go to the grocery store without calling your psychic, shame on you, and start building up your own intuition, because you're just that is not, there's no way to live. You've got to just get out of that rut. I know people go through phases and they need guidance, and it's like, will I get another job? Will I find a boyfriend? Will I do that? I understand people needing some guidance, but if it's a weekly habit, then there's a problem. And then shame on the psychic that talks to you weekly and charges you for it, because the really good, quote, medium psychic healers that I've worked with don't do it weekly with people. They will say, come back in 6 months. Or, the healers they might need every month because if they've got something chronic going on. But as far as intuitive guidance, now there's life coaching. That's a little bit different. But I'm talking about if you need to call a psychic because you can't get through your week without it, and you don't know which way to go to work without calling your psychic, then stop. Go take a deep meditation and probe into your own inner guidance and see what comes up for yourself.
We only got about 3 minutes left with you. Then you get to crawl back into bed. You lucky lady. Lucky lady. I want to end it with a question from one of my favorite listeners, Claudia, who says, I have seen people's faces change in front of me. Do you think it was a walk-in that I was seeing? It seems when this has happened, the energy did not feel good when I saw the person's face change. Have you ever been told what that is when that happens, Jenniffer?
I have, and I've been told it is a walk-in. And you're right, Claudia. I have been told by people who've witnessed it before. A gentleman told me that, he was with a woman and her had a walk-in situation. That's really, really creepy. So yes, I've heard about it from people that I respect, and I think you're spot on. And if you ever see that, run, don't walk to the nearest exit. Get out of there. because that's not a good thing.
It's like a horror movie. Get out.
Yeah.
Get out. No. Well, since we have about 2 minutes left with you, I would love it if you could go over a few of your books, where people can pick them up, and maybe a little description of what they're all about.
You bet. My most recent book, I went around the country and interviewed different psychics, healers, and mediums, and that's what it's called. And you can find them all on my website, JennWeigel.com. My first book, Stay Tuned, was when I first started dipping into this and interviewing psychics, and I went and found myself, in Lilydale, New York, that I was talking about, that spiritualist community. I was doing past life regressions. It was like when I first started dipping my toe into this pond. Then came I'm Spiritual, Damn It, which you and I talked about in our last conversation. Basically, I came out with all this research, so people started sharing every story you could imagine, from firefighters who got whispers in their ears to psychic children. The third book dabbled with a lot of people who died and lived to talk about it. It's called This Isn't the Life I Ordered. And then I said the fourth book is Psychics, Healers, and Mediums. I also have a lot of audiobooks people can find. So just go to JennWeigel.com and have some fun peeking around, and hopefully there's something on there that might pique your interest, or at least get you thinking about things a little differently.
Jen, thank you so much for being on Spaced Out Radio tonight. It's always a pleasure to have someone of your skills and professionalism on. I really commend you for that.
Well, thanks for doing what you're doing, Dave, and just keep digging. That's the only way we're going to find out what's really going on. I just say we have to keep looking under the hood, or we're never going to learn. So that's what expands our consciousness.
And that's what we try to promote around here. We're all about expanding consciousness, one Spaced Out Radio show at a time. And you know what, to have you a part of this, hopefully we can do this again in a few months. I definitely want to get you on more than once a year. I can guarantee that.
You bet.
Absolutely. Jen, you hold on. I'm going to wrap this up so we could go to commercial. Coming up in hour number 3, Joe Roop from Lighting the Void is going to be with us. Yes, the master of the Fringe FM will join us from Spaced Out Radio Saturdays, and we're going to talk about a little bit of fake news, UFOs, a little bit of controversy going on in the field of ufology right now. We're going to check that out. We're going to take your phone calls as well at 702-302-4556. We'll be back with more SOR right after this.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
There's stories, then there's the truth. Do any of us really trust the news anymore? This is Jamie Sexton, owner of Rebel Planet News. The third Thursday of every month, I appear on SpacedOutRadio.com to bring you the truth you deserve, without mainstream media lies or alternative media fear-mongering. We'll get to the heart of the story and deliver the truth you're seeking. So come join us here for the Rebel Planet at SpacedOutRadio.com.
We're lighting the void on Saturday nights on Spaced Out Radio. Hey, this is Joe Roop, and I'm hanging out in SOR headquarters every Saturday night, bringing you the latest news when it comes to the weird and strange. Bigfoot, occult, UFOs, ghosts, and everything in between, I got you covered. You can tune in to SpacedOutRadio.com starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time. Come travel into the void with us on Spaced Out Saturdays.
Not ready for bed on Saturday night? Right after Spaced Out Saturdays, hop on over to S4 with Corey Ruiz and me, Eric Cooper from Forest Moon Paranormal. With S4, there are no limits to what we try and uncover. From government conspiracies to helping clean up the paranormal, no topic is safe on S4. We get to the heart of the matter, of the subjects you want to learn more about. So tune in on S4 starting at midnight Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern, only on SpacedOutRadio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Hi there. I'm Butch Witkowski, lead investigator with U4Cop. On the final Monday of every month, you can listen to me and host Dave Scott on Spaced Out Radio's Strange Days. We're going to get to the heart of the matter when it comes to what's happening out there. People are seeing and experiencing things from ET contact to Bigfoot, and I want to hear about it. Your experiences are what we investigators need to help solve these unknown mysteries. So tune in at spacedoutradio.com to the final Monday of every month from Butch Witkowski's Strange Days.
This is Eric Markham, news editor for the Spaced Out Radio's The Encounter Online. We have put together a great team of writers and journalists from all over the world to bring you top-quality paranormal stories, from alien encounters to the latest conspiracies. You won't find any of that fake news here. True stories and top-notch reporting as we look to bring these experiences to the mainstream. The Encounter Online, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Do you want to know the truth? Do UFOs exist? Are aliens real? Are the governments hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO seekers, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow along with us as we journey across the United States, visiting UFO hotspots and alien hotspots, trying to document the UFO phenomenon. Catch us on Spaced Out Radio every third Monday of the month as we discuss Area 51, UFOs, and more. And also, don't forget to subscribe to us on YouTube.
Become more intimate and interactive with Spaced Out Radio. Join our Space Travelers Club with your new membership. For $5 a month, we'll provide you with special access to the website, monthly prize draws from books to psychic readings, along with monthly newsletter, private interviews, and more. Sign up today to be part of Spaced Out Radio's experience.
Don't have time to listen to Spaced Out Radio live? Wherever you are, the car, the office, the shower, or even if you're traveling, we're right here for you. Each Spaced Out Radio show can be found on iTunes, TuneIn, and on our YouTube channel, Spaced Out Radio Show. It's the perfect way for you to catch up on our shows. For more information, just head over to our website, spacedoutradio.com, and tune in to us today.
There's a lot of strange going on in this world, and we can help you find out what's going on with you. Paranormal, cryptids, UFOs in the sky, aliens in your bedroom tickling your toes. We have the investigators you need to find out the answers you deserve. All you have to do is head to spacedoutradio.com. Your information is 100% confidential. The SOR Sightlines Report. It's free, and we're here to help.
You hear footsteps in the empty room above you. A rocking chair begins rocking by itself. Don't be afraid of the things that go bump in the night. Reach for Spirit Storybox, the iPhone app the Huffington Post UK called the only ghost hunting app you will ever need. Spirit Storybox. The spirits are telling their stories.
It's Cosmic Sundays with me, Elizabeth Anglin, in Cosmic Passport. Let me take you down a 3-hour spiritual journey where we will get into everything from ET contact to Psychic Sundays. It's a journey of listening and learning together with some of the best professionals in their fields. You can tune in to Cosmic Passport at spacedoutradio.com every Sunday, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern.
The views and opinions expressed by tonight's guest and topic of discussion do not necessarily represent the official policy or position of Spaced Out Radio, Spaced Out Weekend, Spaced Out Radio Limited, its hosts, syndicated carriers, or anyone associated with this broadcast. You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and hashtag Spaced Out Radio, and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show. Now, back to the program.
A child grew up too fast, went running wild. Now we don't know who to praise.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Tomorrow night on the program, Jamie Sexton will be back with the Rebel Planet News, as Jamie comes on this show the third Thursday of every month to break down the alternative side of what is going on in the mainstream media, and we absolutely love him when he is on, and we're going to get into a bunch of different stories, and who knows, the word shithole may be brought up tomorrow, but you never know, because I think right now, since the president said it, we're allowed to say it too. But we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes, you know, starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern time at spacedoutradio.com. We want to say hello to everyone listening in on WQEE 99 Rock the Key down in Noonan, Georgia, home of The Walking Dead. We are live as well on the United Public Radio Network, 107.7 FM in New Orleans, and over 160 countries around the world. We're also live on The Fringe FM, Renegade Talk Radio to Vegas. And if you're listening in on Revolution Radio, remember the Double R Machine is a donation station financed by you, the value listener. Head on over to revolution.radio and donate today. Bill Cardwell has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. Quixotic. Quixotic is your password. Make sure you use it wisely, Space Travelers, as Bill sets the password each and every night right here on the mighty SOR. Now, we're also on Periscope. We are on Periscope Live right now. I know there's 16 people, 15 people watching right now. We just lost one. I don't know where you went, but you're there. Go to periscope.tv. You could just type in the search, Spaced Out Radio. We pop right up because we are live. We're getting a ton of hearts. You know, there's number 16, an angel. Perfect. We're looking good. And I'm a solid 5.7 on there. I can get that. You know, that's just for my look. But that's nonetheless. Anyhow, if you're a fan in Spreaker and you're a fan in the SOR Space Travelers Club, as many of you know, Bob Davis, who does our great voice intros to my show, to the Weekend Cruise shows, okay, he has been battling some severe health problems. And Bob has, he's literally sitting in a hospital bed just outside of Edmonton, Alberta, near his home, where he is paralyzed from the chest down. So, if you're in one of those chat rooms, at the end of the show, and you know Bob, you love Bob, go on to Periscope, because we're going to try and connect with Bob on Periscope and on Facebook Live. So we'll be on Periscope. He'll come on Facebook Live, and we'll do a new section called What About Bob? We love Bob. We got to send Bob a lot of energy and positivity, and that started last night. Kevin Liggett, one of our listeners from Texas, he actually has donated to Bob an iPad so Bob can actually... I'm sorry, I'm a little choked up over this, Kevin, because it's really, really cool, man. Really, really cool. Excuse me, with what you did. Kevin donated an iPad to Bob, so Bob still has the use of his arms. So Bob can actually go into the chat rooms now, listen to the show, go into the chat rooms now, and get back chatting. Bob, you should get that in 3 to 5 days, pending on the mail system. But Kevin, I want to really say thank you to you, and you're caring enough for not only Spaced Out Radio, but for Bob as well on doing that, because... sorry, man. It was just really cool. It was, I don't know what else to say. You know, humanity lives around Spaced Out Radio, guys and girls. You know, humanity lives. And Kevin, a real classy human thing to do. So, you know, kudos to you. I know you're on Periscope right now, but, thank you. Anyways, let's get to our website. We have a plethora of features for you on spacedoutradio.com. You can check out, you know, the Encounter Online, where we got a bunch of news. Yeah, just go to our website. I'm a little rattled right now, thanks to what Kevin did. go to our website, spacedoutradio.com. A lot of real cool features there. Read up on the encounter, UFO seekers, contact TV videos, and so much more. Anyways, yeah, very big mention to Kevin for everything that you've done. And, yeah. Wow. I didn't think that would choke me up that much, Joe. I really didn't.
It's the night for getting choked up, I guess.
Yeah, it's well, you know what, dude? I gotta say, it's when you see humanity, when you're given a bag of lemons like Bob is right now. And then you got someone like Kevin who says, hey, Bob, take those lemons and make some lemonade out of this situation. That's really cool. That's the power of what we do. That's why, guys, that we love everybody who comes on in and has made a real emotional connection to this show, and, it's one of those things that I am very, very proud to be a part of this show. I mean, I really am. Because when you have people, and it's not just Kevin, just because he has picked up an iPad for Bob, okay? But I look at so many people have had us doing some real quality things around here. And, whether it's the GoFundMe account at gofundme.com/We Own the Night, whether it's people introducing friends to this show or whatever it is, Joe, this is like family. And, we're all protective of one another. And I know there's so many more listeners out there whom we haven't met. And by God, if you're out there, we haven't met you yet, come on into one of the chat rooms during this show. We want to meet you. This is like a big family here. And, teamed up with people like Joe and Elizabeth and people at the Fringe FM and Joe Montaldo's UPRN and Rev Radio and wherever it is. It doesn't matter where we're broadcasting. The fact that we have people who give a care like this for our own being everybody who is in these chat rooms each and every night, hanging out and even though we'll probably never meet, but acting like friends and family should act. It is damn amazing. It really is. And, it's pretty cool, man. It's pretty cool, Joe. And by the way, Joe, I highly recommend that you get on Periscope for Lighting the Void because it's a lot of fun. It's hard to read the comments. That's the tough part, is reading the comments and trying to stay on touch because you only get one or two before they actually just disappear. But the main thing is, I think it's great. I've had a lot of fun with it. I really have.
Oh, I think I'm going to hide more. I like the mystery of it all.
Sure you do.
Is that bad? Is that bad?
No, I don't think it's bad. I think it's, you got to get used to it. I'm not used to it. Like, I catch myself looking at myself all the time on here, and it's not like I'm addicted to looking at myself because, I can do that any time in the mirror, but I'm like, oh my God, like, do I look okay? Is my gray hair too gray? Is my beard too gray? Do I look older than 44? Do I have the right shirt on? Is there any stains on there? Do people really understand what's behind me and all this stuff that's on my railing here and my GNR addiction and everything like that? So we it's kind of weird. It takes a little bit to get used to. I'm still not used to it, but we're having fun with it.
Yeah, I'm getting I'm not getting it now. I was getting a little reverb there for a little bit. But yeah, that's it is cool to watch you on there, and I hope Bob gets better. That's really cool of Kevin to do that, man. That says a lot about the guy.
Really does. Really, truly does. And Kevin has also been a contributor to our GoFundMe account as well, along with many other people. And you know what? It's fantastic. And, I don't know what to say, man. It's, I'm feeling, I'm having an emotional day. And it's been a lot of fun. It really has been a lot of fun. And, my baby girl turned 19 today. And I remember that day so well, and I realize this isn't on the topic, man, but I remember that day so well, and my daughter was born 6 weeks early because my ex-wife had placenta previa, and so I remember when we had an emergency C-section, and the doctors pulled out my daughter, and they're like, "You have a baby girl," and I'm like, "Son of a gun! It was supposed to be a boy." But I didn't care. And so they brought her over to, where they cut the umbilical cord. And because she was early, they wanted to get her on. She had a little bit of fluid in her lungs. So I didn't get to cut the umbilical cord when she was born. So here I am. I'm 25 years old. And I'm, excuse me. And I am, standing over top of my daughter, and they have heaters on her. And the nurse looks over at me, and she says, this is about 1:06 in the afternoon on Sunday, January 17th, 1999, because my daughter was born at about 12:59. So maybe 1:03 in the afternoon. And the nurse looks at me, and she goes, "First-time father?" And I kind of looked at her, and I said, yeah. How do you know? And she starts laughing. She goes, "You can touch your daughter. She won't break." And I looked at her and I went, "Really?" And she starts laughing. She goes, "Yeah, she's not going to break. That's your little girl." And so I took my left pointer finger, and I poked her hand, and I went, "Hi, Peyton. I'm your dad." And then all of a sudden I got flooded with fear, man, because I know my ex-wife and I had agreed on the name Peyton. And all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, like, did I just name my daughter? And I don't know if that's the name we chose. And I started freaking out. But that was her name. And that was probably, next to my son being born, the greatest, it was really the first greatest moment of my life. And I can't believe that was 19 years ago today. And it was, I will remember it forever. And, you're a father too, Joe. I'm sure you remember that moment and how emotionally crazy it was. And so it's a great moment when you become a parent.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's one of the only tattoos I got on my body is from that day. I didn't go to the parlor that day, but I was so emotionally, it was a lot of emotions running, I said, well, here's a good idea. I'll just stick a needle in myself and draw on myself. I was young too. But I also remember a lot of feeling of love towards my wife at the time, like I never felt either. So it was, it was pretty intense. There's really nothing you can describe that with. It's a spiritual moment, actually.
Well, you know what? As much as my ex-wife and I have turned into mortal enemies, I can never thank her enough for the incredible job that she did in a difficult situation with my daughter and the placenta previa. And, it's amazing because you can love someone so much for what they did for you. And she gave birth to my daughter. My daughter's healthy. She's been an A student through school. She is a very strong, young, independent woman, but at the same time, you can, now you want to break every broom just in case she decides to fly off on one. And that's the ex-wife I'm talking about. You want to make sure that you destroy your car, right? So, there is that too. But, what a moment. And my little girl, you know what? Hold on a second here. You know what, Joe? Let's see if we can call her.
Oh.
I bet you she's in the bar right now. I bet you she's in the bar. We're going to call her right now. See if she's going to pick up. I don't know if she will. She's probably going to be like, why is this strange number calling me? Let's see. Because 19 up here is the drinking age, the legal drinking age, and I think she got hauled out.
Hello.
Hi. How are you?
Hi. Good. How are you?
I got you on the radio. Your daddy needs to know what your first drink was.
It was a Mexican bulldog.
What the hell is that?
I think it was a really good drink. It was like a slushie with a Corona on top.
Oh, okay. Okay, yep. Dad's done one of those. Did you do any tequila?
Last night, yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. And my beautiful girl, you're sounding a little intoxicated right now. Did you have a couple?
I'm not intoxicated.
It's okay. You can tell.
I'm very tired. I only had 2 drinks tonight.
Well, you know what? My audience, honey, I don't know if you looked at our Facebook, but you had people wishing you happy birthday from all over the world. And
I was trying to reply to all of them, but I ended up getting flagged for spam from saying thank you to so many people.
Oh, that sounds about right.
Can you say hi to Uncle Joe in Arkansas? He's on with us right now.
Don't put. Yeah, I'm Uncle Joe. Yeah, you know what you ought to try? You ought to try the lemon drop martini. I used to make those. Those were really good.
Oh, that sounds good.
Yeah.
Just wait, though, honey. I know I wasn't there for your birthday for today, but in 700 and some days, you know where we're flying. You and Dad. We're
so long away.
It's the next goal. I may not have been there for your 19th, okay, but on your 21st, you and Dad are going on a flight. And we're going gambling. We're going gambling, and we're going partying in Vegas. And Dad's going to teach you how to have a tequila shot without all the salt and lime, or lemon, whatever the hell it is.
Oh, it's lime.
Is it lime? Okay, I haven't used lime in years. But anyways, my love, happy birthday to you.
Thank you so much.
You are my dream come true. I have always told you that. And right before we called you, I was telling our audience here, and it's small. It's only about 150,000 people, hon. But I was telling our audience about that first moment when I got to introduce myself to you, and you are my dream come true, and I am so proud to be your dad. It's yes, we have the little guy and everything like that, babe, but you're number one. And to be your father has been the greatest dream of my life. And I want to, I have no problem saying publicly to our audience how much I love you and how much you mean to me. And thank you for being my idol, my hero, and most importantly, giving me the opportunity to be your dad.
Thanks, Dad. You're going to make me, cry right now. And that's not good.
No, knowing the way you wear your mascara, I'm sure it's going to run. But I'll let you go because I know you're tired. But I will see you Saturday for dinner. Okay, old Dad's going to buy you a nice dinner on Saturday, and your brother and sister are coming down with me. And we love you, and I cannot wait to see you on Saturday to give you a big hug.
Thanks, Dad. I love you so much, and I'll see you this weekend.
Okay, I love you, baby girl.
Happy birthday!
Okay,
Happy birthday!
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Okay, love you, baby. Bye-bye. That's my girl. Yeah, that's my girl. Hey, guys and girls, thanks for letting me do that. I realize I didn't need your permission or anything like that, but, thank you for allowing me to do that. My baby girl is my world, and she's a pretty cool kid. And so, thank you for allowing me to bring her on the air here for a couple of moments and just introduce her to all of you and everything. Anyways, Joe, we got you. Let's go from a happy birthday wish to to talk. What
There's
the
nothing
hell are
better
we?
than a happy birthday. Where can you go to
I
from
know.
that?
And the reason why, if you're on, just so you know, if you're on Periscope and you're getting a little bit of feedback, it's because sometimes I don't get to my mute quite quick. So my microphone is actually picking up the speaker that is feeding Periscope. So I do apologize. I am working on that. But that's why you might get a little bit of feedback or why it sounds a little different at times. So, Joe, UFOs. There is a video out there right now that there are people claiming that is 100% real. And I was on Den of Lore before this show with Chris Zuger and his partner Mike on the air, and Dave Cruz, who's a good friend of this show, and everybody knows him from Saturday. There's a gentleman out there, really good guy. He's been a guest on this show named Jeffrey Boyd Jr., and Jeff is a good guy. He's a hard-working researcher trying to make a name for himself. And he recently posted a UFO video that he claimed was straight from NASA showing 2 UFOs. Chris Zuger came on and basically said the video is fake. Now, I'm not going to get into whether or not Jeff did it on purpose, okay? I don't think he's that kind of guy. And I even said that on Den of Lore. But the one thing that I do find is, this is how, Joe, this fake news gets started. You know what I'm saying? That is my concern. That wasn't Chris's concern or Dave's concern, but it was my concern because I have been hammering this fake news stuff in the alternative media so hard that this just bothered me. It absolutely bothered me. What was your take on the video?
Well, I mean, I'm no video expert either. So when I first saw it, I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. What is that? And I looked, I actually didn't take me long to find the original video, but I didn't send it to anyone because I was, by that time Chris was already on it. He'd already found the original video, which is actually just a video, an educational video about the gray satellites. But when my whole take of this whole thing, what surprised me the most is because I've only been broadcasting for a couple of years now, is just how fast everybody was trying to get Jeffrey on their show, put their spin on it, and all kinds of stuff, man. It was insane. And, he told me this firsthand. And we're talking about, shows with some pretty big names here. And I thought, man, what's more important here? I mean, the truth has got to be more important than getting on top of the story. And from a journalist point of view, I know it's important to get on the story, but I think the biggest lesson learned after all this, on this thing was before you jump on a story, you might want to sit back and take a look at it first instead of trying to be the first one to get on top of it,
But like Jen Weigel said in hour number 1 when we talked about the media, it isn't about the sources anymore. It's about getting the story out there. And like Dennis says in the Spreaker chat room, I don't think Jeff did it on purpose. Jeff has been working hard to, carve out a niche in this, paranormal supernatural realm that we are in. And I can tell you this, I don't think he did it on purpose at all. I think he may have jumped the gun, but I don't think he did it on purpose at all. But in the end, when you're going on other shows and you are claiming something that is real when it's already been debunked, that's where the danger starts out for all of us. And that is something that we, as broadcasters or journalists, really have to watch out for, buddy. Because if we don't, we can get in trouble ourselves. You know what I'm saying?
Oh yeah. Yeah. And a lot of times too, is some of these people are our friends. That's just like if somebody that I knew personally, let's say you, for example, was like, hey, look at this video, because I'm kind of friends with Jeffrey. What do you think? Well, I mean, I'm going to trust you a little bit on this too. But then again, we got to be careful about this stuff because it has to do with more than friends and more than just a listening audience, because once you are releasing a video that says, hey, these are real UFOs, or what is this? No one's ever seen this. You're getting the whole community involved. So, yeah, it's very important that you're careful with it.
Andrew in the Spreaker chat room has just put in a video of it being a spoof, a spoof about micro killer drones. So if anybody wants to check that out on Spreaker, I highly suggest that you do, and you can check it out that way. And it's something that I think is, I think it's dangerous in this field. And, with everything that is going on and everything being awry right now in the field of ufology, it just seems like all because of the whole New York Times article, everybody's jumping on absolutely everything. Well, that's real, that's real. And this is where, at the beginning of all this, Joe, I don't know if you remember me saying this, but I even wrote it in a blog. I said it on the show. I put it on my Facebook. We got to take a step back here. This is the time for all of us as researchers, as broadcasters, to take a step back and say, hold on a second. Let's analyze this to make sure that they are giving us the right information, because we know they have given so much. And I'm not just saying the government, but we know there is so much disinformation out there.
Well, that's true. I mean, the soft disclosure video, the only thing that really happened in history there was the government admitting to something, but it didn't take but a few fighter pilots to analyze the video and say, this doesn't, there's so many things about this that doesn't add up. But, on the other hand, you had sources or certain shows that wanted to be on the story. And I understand the responsibility, because that's what you do. You're supposed to get the story out to your audience. You're kind of responsible about that. You want to be the first guy that does it. But nowadays, especially with what's going on, and if we really want to be taken seriously, and we really want the subject to be taken seriously, we've got to look at stuff a little bit more, with a magnifying glass, just a little bit more before we jump all over it.
I would absolutely agree. Absolutely agree that that's something that we need to do. And I think as media, we need to take a big step back, and we need to literally, analyze what is going on. The people who are having these experiences, Joe, they're relying on you. They're relying on me. They're relying on all the other radio show hosts above us or below us to get some sort of truth. And, I mean, how many times have we bashed people on this show and on other shows about putting up those stupid Nibiru CGI movies where they're like, oh my God, what is that? The media would never cover that story. Dude, if you got a planet spinning in our atmosphere, I guarantee you every news outlet is going to be covering that story.
Oh yeah.
But this is the problem with the field we are in, is people are so used to BS that they're no longer calling out people on it anymore. And this video is another result of somebody's quick reaction and everybody jumping on it because it's the hot new thing. No, it's not. No, it's not.
Well, I want to take a step back here and just a little humility. When I found out that Tim Doyle didn't trust to go on anybody's radio station but yours, I took offense to that a little bit, because I was like, I really like this guy's work. I've said it so many times, right? But after this event, I think I understand where he's coming from. I really do.
Oh, absolutely. And, I'm not defending, Tim or anything, because I would like to see him do your show. I tried to get him on your show, right? But, I mean, the whole point...
Well, he does really good work, and he needs to protect it. That's the whole point. And when we put out things like this and we jump all over it, yeah, we're doing the UFO field a disservice. But if you look at what Tim Doyle's done and his work, you're not helping that guy at all. That guy's put a lot of work into what he's done. and you can sit in your house and find a feed on the internet and think you got the greatest big story. Meanwhile, this guy's traveling all over the country and catching stuff with a real camera, working as hard as he can. You're doing a lot of people a disservice if you don't watch this. And I'm just saying this not because I've always known this. I'm learning this too as it happens,
Well, you know what? I just hope the field goes easy on Jeff. In my own, and I will go out there publicly and state, with my combating of fake news, I did remove him from my Facebook friendship profile, because I've told a lot of people that that's what I'm doing. So unfortunately, I had to do that. But, and I feel guilty about that because he is a former guest. But on the flip side, I have to watch out for the integrity of this show and make sure that, make sure that we're doing things the way we should be doing it. And if I'm going to stand up for something like I am taking a stance against this fake news in the alternative media, then unfortunately I have to do that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And I Jeffrey, he's still a good friend of mine. I know where he's coming from. I know his intentions. And I think this might be maybe something that he learned from all this too. I really don't think that he put this together as a hoax on purpose, knowing it was fake. That's just my opinion. But the fact remains is that it's not real. And I do understand why you had to do what you're doing too, because you got to protect your audience and your feeds,
And that's exactly it. If you want to call in, 1-702-302-4556. That's 1-702-302-4556. Really appreciate you taking the time to call on in if you want, because it's rare that we do the open lines around here. Dude, I'm watching myself on Periscope right now. I put it on my computer. It's not pretty. It really is not pretty. I'm not going to lie. I got to do something about this beard. It's hideous right now.
You need to shave that thing, man.
Yeah. I'm going to trim it on down. That's an executive decision, right there. Gail's already flipping out on me.
Just like the guy was talking about the drones. See, I covered that story before, but I told everybody on my show, Lighting the Void, I said, look, this is a reenactment, but the contracts and these military contracts of these artificial or autonomous weapon drones, that's really happening. There's Elon Musk and all these other people that are trying to combat this, and someone made a reenactment video, so it's not real. And then I put it on my Facebook page, but you got to watch it for a while. But yeah, I can see where some people could see it was real. And you know what? He's right. Sure enough, a lot of people started spreading that around like it was a real video. It's crazy, man. All this stuff happens in less than an hour.
Absolutely. It happens very, very quickly when this happens. And like I said, I'm not saying that I'm not going to re-add Jeffrey in the future, but for right now, he's on the naughty list, and I got to take a stance. I just have to, because that is something that I have told my listeners that I am doing in order to get rid of this. So it's not like he can't come back. It's just for right now, he's in the penalty box. We're going to use a hockey term here, Joe. He's in the penalty box, and he's serving a misconduct.
Right. I get it, man.
You don't even know what that is, do you?
I know what a penalty box is. I've seen that movie, Goon.
You have to watch Slapshot. Would you do me a favor? Watch Slapshot. That is that is an icon with Paul Newman in it. It's the greatest hockey movie ever. Greatest hockey movie ever.
It's hard for me to watch hockey because I can't see the puck, but now that they got that thing that follows it around, it's a lot more interesting. But honestly, I want to see the fights. If it was just fights, I'd probably watch it more. That's bad, I know.
Yeah, but they're so fun to be in. They're so fun to be in. It really is. Yeah. Honestly, watch Slapshot. Learn who Ogie Oglethorpe is. Learn who the Hanson brothers are. Learn where the saying, Dave's a killer, Dave's a mess, comes into play.
Yeah, you
It's
told
all
me about
good.
this before.
You won't be disappointed. It was filmed in the 70s, man. It was filmed in the 70s. You won't be disappointed.
No, everything filmed in the 70s was good, I think.
Slapshot is literally the best. Best movie. Best movie out there. Anyhow, moving on as we get to hockey. Does this video, as viral as it is becoming, does this cause a concern, do you think, in the field of ufology, especially as the mainstream is starting to get a little intrigued by what we've been talking about for years?
Oh, yeah, it causes a big concern. So many things can happen. They can take that video and try to discredit so many people with it, or they can run with it and say it's real, like sometimes they do with other videos. It's there's not a lot of people, in my opinion, as much as I would like to see, there's not a lot of people in the media that's trying to protect the truth as much as they say they're all about the truth. And you come to our show and whatever, I really don't see that. I've seen some just outrageous stories that can't be backed up by anything. You know, when you talk about spiritual matters, though, Dave, those things are kind of hard to prove a lot of times. But when you talk about, you know, you've been on another planet and you've went to, you know, whatever dimension and Gondor and all these other places, and you got millions of people following you, and then you're just ready to jump on any crazy story, that's a problem. Yeah, it's a problem. Again, I'll take it back to people that are doing real work, like Tim. Say what you want about the guy. He's doing real work.
And that's exactly it, is we need people out there to do some real work. We need more Tim Doyles. We need more Grant Camerons, Lorien Fentons getting in there and doing some digging. Because in the end, you know, this is a major story in the lifetime of men and women on this planet. And if we're not going to do it right, the majority of people are going to be asleep. We talk about this stupid term, sheeple, all the time. How many times a week do you hear that term, sheeple, if you're on Facebook? I'm so sick of that term. But it is true when people are using that. However, who's to blame here? Who is to blame? You know what I'm saying?
No, what do you mean by who's to blame? Like,
well, I mean,
we to blame?
I think the alternative side, our side on this, is to blame.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You know, because with us giving that false information, with us giving these stupid CGI videos, or run this before Facebook takes it off, or Google is eliminating this video, so watch it quickly, all that clickbait crap, you know. But, I mean, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. You know?
Yeah, the internet has its way of putting a curse on some of the stuff that we're trying to do, you know. Again, there's also what you're talking about, the sheeple thing. That comes from a solipsism. That comes from a point of view where whoever is saying that is way up here and everybody else is way down there, and they just don't get it. But you know, that's a step in consciousness. Everyone needs to understand that a lot of people are in the same field here. Just because you see something somebody else doesn't make them a sheep. And, you know, and I mean, in all actuality, dumb people don't know they're dumb. So, I mean, I know I'm a little dumb. I just don't know to what extent. It'd be crazy for me to say to what extent that I'm ignorant. But we're all ignorant to a lot of things. And if we think that we're not, then, you know, we're fooling ourselves.
I fully agree with that. I fully agree. And, you know, my idea of this is, why are we trying to pull the rug over our own people when the only ones we're hurting is our own reputation? Daryl, I know you're asking for the phone number. We are literally about 2 minutes away from the thought of the Dave, so call time is literally over. And Dennis, just so you know, You're snarking Canadian movies there, and trust me, our film system up here in Canada is terrible, with a capital S. It really is. And if you can figure that one out, you can figure it out. But Slapshot was American. It was an American-made film. Just had a lot of Canadian actors in it. But you got to figure out who Ogie Oglethorpe is. That's the big one. Ogie Oglethorpe.
So what made you decide to do this Thought of the Dave thing? You know, the Cooter music comes in, Dave gives his own thought on something. I like it, but what inspired you to do that?
A few months ago, I just started posting questions on my Facebook, and people just started responding. They just started responding. So I figured, you know what? I was disappointed. I found that that our questions, or pardon me, our last 15 minutes of an interview, it usually sounded that like I was either bored or our guest was bored, or if we had a tough guest that night, you know, I'd run out of questions. So I figured, you know what? We got to cut into the show somehow and keep listeners here, because I notice our listeners in the chat rooms especially starting to die down near the end of the show. So we had to bring in something to keep people here. So that's why we kind of brought it on. And, you know, Thought of the Dave is something that kind of word on play. It's a, you know, it's much like Adam's addiction to gnomes in the chat room. That's just the way it is. But it's just kind of a little bit of wordplay where, you know what, you can hang out for this one if you want, Joe, because we're gonna fire it up. We're gonna fire it up right now.
Talking about how passionate you Canadians are awful proud, aren't you?
We wave the flag, and you know
That's
what?
right.
It wasn't until 2010 when we hosted the Olympics that we finally realized as Canadians that we were allowed to do that. Oh, the Cuterebra, Mr. Bumblefoot. It is absolutely awesome. The Thought of the Dave happens every day. All you got to do is go on Twitter or on Facebook. I will post a question of the day, and then you come in and tell me your answer about it, because it's all about you guys. It's all about trying to figure it out. You know, so today's Thought of the Dave, and Joe, we're going to start off with you on this one, and we're going to call this right off the bat here, okay? Today's Thought of the Dave, to celebrate my daughter's 19th birthday, and you heard from my beautiful young lady, you know, my daughter, is going to college soon, okay? Because it's her birthday, she is actually quite intuitive as well, so I thought I would pose this question. How old were you when you discovered your intuition, and what was the first experience you recall with it? So, what do you think there, buddy? What was yours? How old were you?
I never trusted my inner voices or intuition until I was 21. I started having anxiety attacks, and I had a supreme change in consciousness. I quit all my doing drugs and drinking and all kinds of stuff, the rough life, and I had no idea why. But it taught me to trust it, because if I didn't and I kept fighting it, I just kept having anxiety attacks, sheer like panic attacks, you know, almost like a quarter life crisis. And the more I fought it, the worse it got, until I started trusting it. And I was to go into a new direction with my life. And ever since then, I will never not listen to my intuition again.
Really? Why won't you trust it? Why not just go with it? Run with it. Go with the flow, man.
No, what I'm saying is I will never not listen to my intuition again.
Well, I heard you wrong then. I heard you wrong.
Yeah. From that point on, I knew to listen to it. I didn't trust it before because I thought it was all in my head or something I was making up, or it was just some kind of little voice, you know, but it was my intuition actually changed my life for the better.
I'm still debating whether mine did or not. I'm going to be honest with you. I am so wondering whether whether mine will help me out or not. I'm still trying to find my path, man. Still trying to find my path. So it's very interesting, you know, how sometimes stuff like this plays along. But we're going to see where it goes, and we're going to see how it goes. The one thing that I would love to do is when I am doing this show full time, I really want to start taking some time during the day to try and figure out, kind of where everything leads on my end, because I am so tired of having things pop into my head. I'll give you an example. Last night, after the show, I was talking with Everett Thiemer, and we were just BSing away, as, a couple nights a week we will do. I'll sometimes do it with you, Joe, or a preacher, or whoever. And literally, I'm standing right outside my carport, looking up at the stars, and I am hit with every goosebump in my body. It's not even cold, man. It's not even cold. It's like above zero here. T-shirt weather. Shorts weather even. Definitely not socks. Don't need socks at that temperature. But I felt like I was being watched. And all of a sudden, all these intuitive questions start coming to me. And I'm like, dude, it was like rapid fire. Absolute rapid fire. And my problem is the journalist in me does not, and Dennis, I did ground my yard. Yes, I did. I grounded my yard last night because of it, because it was heavy and it was fast. But the journalist in me is the skeptic in me. And so, hi Moonlicht, thank you so much for checking it out on Periscope. Appreciate that. But what really got me, Joe, is the fact that I don't trust what I'm seeing, even though I know it's true. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I just don't have anything inside me that confirms what I'm hearing or what I'm feeling or what I'm seeing in my mind is actually true. That's what I don't understand, and that's the part that frustrates me the most.
Well, I mean, you seen Carl, didn't you?
Yeah, but Carl was different. He was an entity standing right at my window. How could I not see him?
Mm-hmm. So when you were thinking about that, what did you think? Did you have any idea of what was watching you, or it was just a subtle feeling of being watched?
Hard to explain. No, there was something in there, and it was like rapid fire questions, man. Rapid fire questions. I know someone's trying to call in right now. We're not taking callers because of the fact that we are into the thought of the Dave. So the call time is over. So you got to be a little bit quicker than 10 minutes, than 7 minutes before we shut down. But thank you anyways. We're not taking calls. So
do you meditate, Dave?
No, my mind moves too fast. My mind moves way too fast. Let's get to a couple thoughts of the Daves. Cindy wrote in today, and she said, I was living in a rural setting, and I discovered I could communicate with the fish in our pond telepathically. I was young and busy. We really didn't understand the gravity of it, and of course I never told anyone. I would have been locked up. But that experience changed my view on everything. It was like an open door to a life I never knew existed. And then she goes on to say, I suspect I had abductions during that period as well, but I have no proof and I have not been regressed, and that happened to her in childhood. All right, so, this is some of the stuff we are dealing with. Jill speaks up. She goes, early ages, like single digits, 5-ish? Then she says, it's when I realized I didn't like large groups of people, too many energies, and the feeling that someone didn't like me. And I was right. By the way, Marie, just so you know, I am not a Maple Leafs fan. Not a Maple Leafs fan. No, I am a Canucks and Oilers fan. I've been an Oilers fan since day one, 1979, when Gretzky hit the ice in the NHL. 78, actually. So, shows you I was, 5 years old at that point? So.
Come on, let's move past the hockey, Dave. Let's get on with more Dave.
Hey, all right. Damn it, man. Damn it. Dennis says, I was 5 through a dream and communication with nature, all ways, and paranormal. 8 started reading cards at 14. So at 8 years old, he started dealing with the paranormal. At 14, he started reading cards. He says it just became automatic. Between the ages of 5 to 7, Lucky Kimba, thank you for showing up tonight. Between the ages of 5 to 7 is where he started remembering started remembering, and between 8 and 10 he began to understand what was going on. Keith says he was 16 years old. He was in St. Louis with a bunch of friends. They were downtown at a youth conference. They were looking for a place to eat, and we found one we liked. He says, I walked in and I told him I did not want to stay there. Let's find another place. It was a nice restaurant, but he just had this feeling he couldn't get out of his head. When they went down the street, next thing they know, and picked up a couple chili dogs, the police showed up at that restaurant that they had just left. There had been an armed robbery and one person was injured. He became an immediate believer in divine intuition. What do you think of that one, buddy?
Well, that's a pretty cool story. Yeah. Pretty cool story. I'm a believer on that one.
Yeah, I haven't had something like that. Let's see. Joseph Roop even. Do you know this guy?
I have no idea who that is.
Okay, Joseph Roop. No relation to Joe Roop. Says, I was 21 before anything started happening that I took notice to. I never trusted anything, not even my intuition, until then. Bill Cardwell. Go Leafs. That doesn't fall into this category. Donna says she was 10 years old. Her father had just passed over. He guided her to finding a lost $20 her mom had left for the milkman. If we didn't pay that day, no more milk. Robert White was 4. Aussie Rob said he saw shadow animals at the end of his parents' bed, making him feel better because at the time he was sick. The animals were native Aussie animals: kangaroo, emu, wombat, koala. It's kind of cool. Donna Hare, who's been a former guest on this show, she says she was around 18 months in her mom's arms and repeated what she heard even though she didn't know any English. She freaked out because they both realized at the same time she was not talking out loud. Edie Kaito, who has been a guest on this show, says she was about 9 and had a bizarre dream about her cousin in clouds and a phone ringing. That afternoon, the phone rang and her mom collapsed in a heap on the floor. Her cousin was 13 years old, was helping his stepdad convert a school bus into a camper, was electrocuted, and died right there in front of the yard. And she still has prophetic dreams. Now that's eerie. That is eerie, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, yeah, that is eerie.
Have you ever had a prophetic dream?
Yeah. Yeah, but yes, I have, but I still don't know what it means.
Oh,
I saw 2 moons rising. Yep, 2 moons rising, 1 moon fell, and I was full of fear, and it was really real. And I knew it was some type of prophetic dream. I just don't know what it was.
I had, when I was 18, I was trying to get into or when I was 17 going into 18, my goal in life was to be a fighter pilot in the Canadian Armed Forces. And for 3 months straight after I turned 18, so that would have been May, June, and July, I had the exact same dream almost every night. And my hometown had an air show, and I was flying the demonstration pilot of a CF-18, okay? And I would do this loop in the sky, and all of a sudden coming out of the loop, something would fail in the aircraft, and the aircraft would plummet nose to the ground. And right before it hit the ground, I would all of a sudden shoot into the crowd to watch myself crash into the ground.
What?
Yeah. And little did I know that was how I found out that I would never be able to join the Canadian Armed Forces to become a pilot. Crappy.
Huh.
But we're going to end on this. Heather says she was 12 years old. Kevin, speaking about his daughter, says she was about 13. On the phone tonight, she was saying, Dad, I had a weird day. I creeped out my friends, and I told them I totally understand them, like right when they have problems. I know when things are about to happen, sometimes what they are doing while I'm on the phone with them. I'm not sure how old I was when I had my first runabout with intuition, but I could say my daughter was 13. Funny how things seem to recur in a day. Robin was in his early 20s. Gloria was about 6 years old. And that is Spaced Out Radio for tonight. Joe Roop, thanks so much for coming on after lighting the void. Really do appreciate that, my friend.
You got it. Anytime.
you hold on, buddy. We are absolutely going to be wrapping this thing up. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot THAL rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every show. Tomorrow night, the man, the myth, and the alternative news legend, Jamie Sexton from the Rebel Planet, joins us for his monthly feature that happens the third Thursday of every month. Jamie will be with us at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern Time at spacedoutradio.com. We also want to say thank you to Jenniffer Weigel for coming in the first 2 hours to talk spirituality, the media, near-death experiences. Always a pleasure to have her on the show. But most of all, what about Bob? It's coming up. So make sure you go to Periscope. We're going to try and connect with Bob Davis on Facebook Live. But most of all, I want to say thank you to all of you sitting at home, at work, in your cars, wherever you may be right now. If you're on Twitter at hashtag Spaced Out Radio, or in Spreaker, or in the Legends group, the SOR Space Travelers Club on Facebook, I thank you so much for doing this with me, because it's so much fun. It was another great night, because together, my friends, we own the night. I will talk to you guys in exactly 21 hours from now. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Good night.